Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Co-Optional Podcast.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. It is the 9th of February, yes.
It is.
You seem so upset by that fact.
It sure is.
Are you okay?
I really hate today. No, I'm good. I'm fine.
Okay.
What?
I took a shower today. I'm wearing pajamas. So really my day in general is like pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, if there was a show where that would be acceptable, this would be it.
Yeah.
I think the whole taking a shower thing is unusual for people that are on the show, but
entirely different worlds where you're like, I'm having a great day, took a shower, I'm like...
And now we know why Jesse has a separate office as far away from yours as possible. Then.
Yeah, I always know if Jesse seems like he's out of sorts, I'm like, oh, bud, you didn't get to take a shower today, did you? I know that's going to be the thing that upsets the whole balance of the entire day.
There's an order to your day, and that's number one is actually poo. Number two is shower. You got to do it in order, and if you don't,
I mean, yeah, you're really wasting the shower water if you don't poop first.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you're pooping in the
shower
shower
and then poop, you're fucked up.
That's so weird, yeah.
Yeah.
Clint's wondering what the hell he got himself into, and I certainly don't blame him.
Hey.
I mean, I'm mostly just here because I was told I didn't have to wear pants. So
you're not wrong.
Clint gets me.
I mean, that's almost a requirement for the show, honestly. I tend to find that people properly dressed don't do as well here. That's just the way that it is. Maybe it's just part of the environment that we're in, a self-inflicted environment. An irresponsible, horrible environment. Indeed. Clint of LazyGameReviews, welcome to the show.
Greetings. How are you doing?
Very, very well. Thank you for asking. Very impressive wall that you have back there. That looks like a copy of Lemmings. Big box copy of Lemmings, maybe in the back there.
I was going to say,
that is. Back there. Yeah, that is a very small subset of the collection.
I imagine so.
A few of the other favorites.
I'm more impressed by that. Is that a VHS? What is that back there?
Those are a couple of cassette decks back there that I'm trying to coax back to life at the moment.
Also, pause. Sound Blaster, nailing it. Nailing everything about it.
I mean, if you do a lot of retro game reviews, you do have to own that sort of hardware, and that is an awful lot of what you do, actually. You're mostly a retro review channel.
Retro computing specifically, so pretty much if it came out from, the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s, that is like my jam just right there.
Do you get a lot of companies asking you to review games?
I do, and like 95% of them make no sense whatsoever. It's like, here's our latest, coin pusher game on the App Store.
That's kind of what I was asking. I was hoping there are companies that are like, will you review this game from 1994 for us? Like,
I wish. The closest I've ever gotten to that was when Brian Provinciano re-released Retro City Rampage for MS-DOS.
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
So that is like the only modern DOS game release that I've gotten in 8 years of doing this.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a pain in the arse to be a retro PC channel in particular. A retro console, you can still find an NES and you can still find copies of most games, and worst comes to worst, I guess you can do emulation and all that sort of thing. And of course, you can emulate DOS relatively well with DOSBox, but in particular, I was trying a few years ago to get some Windows 95 games running, and it was a nightmare. It just wasn't happening.
That stuff. I mean, that's why I've got probably, 60 or 70 old PCs, like one from just about every year.
Did you say 60 or 70 old PCs? Fucking hell.
Or more. I'm not interested.
Where?
I've got somewhere completely away from my home. Like, this is as crazy as it gets in my home, but like my collection is just 5,000 games or so at this point, and
fucking hell,
around however many dozen computers. So like each one of them is there for a very specific reason. If I want to cover a game from 1997, I'm going to use a computer from 1997. So
it's generally the best way to do it. It's
a little absurd, but I guess that's why people watch.
Yeah, I would say so, because most people cannot be bothered to commit to that level. Yeah.
Too much. You know what? I'm gonna say. I'm the first to tell you. You've gone too far. You've gone too far.
I get that a lot, but that's okay. I mean, somebody's got to do it, or somebody's chosen to do it.
No,
better to reign in hell than serve in heaven.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah, well,
you don't have to do it. You don't need to bring back those dinosaurs.
MS-DOS gaming found a way here in my house, and that is the truth.
Incredible. Amazing. Always nice to have a bit of a different guest on the show who will no doubt roll his eyes at some of the crap that we've been playing lately, but there you go.
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely. We need someone to do that. We can't be surrounded by yes men all the time. Welcome to the Co-optional Podcast. We do occasionally talk about video games. Coming to the show, we'll be talking about the games that we've been playing this week. And, of course, we'll be wrapping up some of the news. I've said it before. You wait 3 hours for a bus, none come, and then 3 come at once. There's actually some news this week, so we can talk about that. And I am happy to tell you that the release list section will not take an hour this time.
Short.
It's a bit shorter. Short. You know, I was thinking this week, look, we've got to change this segment because it's becoming an absolute disaster. I'm going to pre-screen. I'm going to look for the hilariously bad stuff and the stuff that's worthwhile and cut out the 20 or so hidden object games. But it turns out there's actually not that many games this week, so we'll be fine. I can start actually, doing the whole quality control thing next week. That would be a unique and new thing for the show, quality control. It might scare off our usual viewer base. I'm not sure if that's okay.
Fans of, yeah, we have a lot of fans of 4 really bored people looking through video games.
Pretty much.
That's our massive demo. They're like, I wonder what kind of awful games they're going to look at this week.
Add to wish list. Add to wish list.
There is a serious market for that stuff. There really is.
Terrible.
Yeah, it's like it's a bit Schadenfreude, I think, for a lot of people that like to watch others suffer and endure things that they will not themselves have to endure. That's fine. We live to serve, as it were. All right,
we live to suffer.
We do. We suffer for our craft. All right, let's talk a little bit about the games that we have been playing this week. But before we start that, can I ask, has anybody tried the new Fire Emblem mobile game at all?
I watched Sam play it a ton.
Oh, okay. That is all I've played this week.
Oh, right.
That's it. That's all I played.
Cool.
Sam has been playing it like non-stop. Loves it.
I'm glad to hear that you have, so you can talk about it, because I was thinking about it and I realized I play too many of those gacha mobile game cash vampires as it is. I actively play 2 with gacha mechanics, and that's not even actually even more than that. Maybe that's not counting Clash Royale and Force Arena, who are more sort of CCG style of thing. But I recently discovered that term. I didn't know that it was a thing. Okay, if it has that music, maybe I should play it, actually.
It is the most ridiculous intro song ever. It's just the guy's like, Fire Emblem.
That in itself is kind of brilliant, I have to say. But that's not going to be enough to push me into playing it.
Well, I mean, like, if you love the tactics element of Fire Emblem, that's literally all that this game is.
Yeah. So,
but isn't it also a shit ton of collecting characters of star ratings as
right,
well?
But like,
yeah.
Playing it. Like the actual gameplay of it is just the Fire Emblem.
So let's jump into that.
All right, yeah, okay. Let's hear what you're gonna say, because I haven't played it, so it's fair. I want to hear from the perspective of someone that has.
Essentially, the gist is if you are a person who likes Fire Emblem, the actual gameplay is Fire Emblem minus having to deal with weapons. You know how in Fire Emblem you have weapons that can break or you can equip different. It's that. But you don't have to deal with that stuff. So it's
that's actually a bit disappointing. I quite like that.
It's the core base mechanic of Fire Emblem, where it's strategy. So you have red. There's red, green, and blue are the different symbols of like power. Essentially, it's the triangle where it's
what was it like? Axe beats sword, spear beats, etc. Yeah,
a spear can defeat a sword, and then you have the non-color, which is like the bow and arrows and the ninjas, and like it's the same core mechanic of Fire Emblem in general. So if you are down with that, you're gonna like that to begin with. From there, you have a hall that you can build for yourself, and each time you upgrade your hall, it gives you more experience. But in order to upgrade that hall, you are also using the same items that you get that allow you to recruit people.
Typical.
The recruitment is based on collecting orbs, and you get orbs for beating story missions, and you get orbs just for logging in daily. The problem is that it costs. The way that it works is when you summon, it's a random summon, but it costs 5 orbs to start the summon. And you get 5 things to choose from. And and it's random 5 colors. So you can get like 2 green, 2 non-color, and 1 red. And if you select the red and you're like, well, I guess I want to pick more from the same list, it now costs 4 instead of 5. And so you can just select from this thing. And so sometimes if you're looking for a red, what you can do, and this is how I got all my 5 stars, is I would be like, all right, I want to summon, and I get 5 red, and I'm like, yo, I'm in the zone. And so it's cheap. It's like cheaper for the rest of those red ones. So all those little bullshit mechanics of, mobile games.
Gacha is the name, I think.
Gacha.
Yeah. That it was. I came across that term like a little while ago, and apparently that's what it refers to. The kind of Japanese monetization method that was taken from the little capsule machines, like the little random capsule toy machines.
You have no idea what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
But the thing with the gacha apps, and there's, like you were saying, there's so many of them.
There are.
Is that a lot of people just uninstall the game and then reinstall it until they get what they want.
And that's
you can do that?
what a lot of people did for this one.
Huh.
You can just re-roll your party over and over and over again to make sure you start with the characters you want and the stats that you want.
That's almost. I'd say that's actually better than quite a lot of the stuff that is on the mobile market then, because Galaxy of Heroes, you can't do that shit. I can tell you that for a fact. Like
a lot of people did that with this one.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that one is just.
Because everybody loves the characters so much.
So
They're like,
hard.
I didn't get my favorite character. Fuck this. Uninstall. Reinstall.
Yeah. I made the terrible mistake of immediately linking it to my Nintendo account. So from moment one, but I lucked out in that the characters that I got from my first few summons were straight up some of the best characters you could possibly get. I don't know how it happened.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why it happened, but right now I'm running with a all max team of like Camilla. So I got Boobs on my team.
Of course.
And I have Lucina on my team. So like I have all the like Stone Cold heroes from the games, but it has all those things where you can summon like 5 of the same hero and then combine them to make one person great. They have an arena mode, and the arena mode lets you choose if you want to do beginner, intermediate, or advanced, and it basically pits you against teams of that are your same level but based on star rating.
Yes.
So your advanced would be like, okay, these guys are all gold 5 stars, and they're gonna try and kick my ass. But the arena again has a different, and this I think is pretty standard, it has a different item base that you can enter. So you're not, it isn't based on your like points or your stamina, I believe is what it's called in this one. But it's not based on stamina, it's based on like little sword symbols, and you can enter the arena as many times as you have sword symbols. I will say the one thing that makes this game better to me than other games of this variety is the fact that because it's linked to your Nintendo account, those points you accrue then can be spent to buy things for the game without having to spend money. Like I haven't spent a cent on this thing, and I already have a team of 4 gold 5 stars at level 30 plus, and I haven't spent a cent.
The question I wonder is like if you will run into that free-to-play wall, because I played a ton of the most experience that I've had with games of that style is Galaxy of Heroes, and I've played a lot of that. And if you are not actively playing on a daily basis, completing absolutely everything, and if you hadn't honestly spent a bit of money early on, in particular, there are certain points that you just can't get past. In particular, right now, they have a bunch of challenges which require teams like, you have to have people only Rebellion characters or only Jawas, and it's like, oh, great, I have to have a fully functional fucking Jawa team and all this shit. And it's like, it takes so long to even acquire those characters, and even if you do acquire them, they're lower star rating than they have to be. You can't acquire a max star rating character just from a pack pull in that game. It's not possible. So you have to earn shards, which takes fucking forever. I was talking about that WWE Match 3 game last week or the week before, and I got Nerdcubed, who's been on our show before, to play it, because he's a big WWE fan like I am. Well, as big a one as you can be. We're mostly just angry at WWE most of the time. It's like, how could you possibly think that this is a good idea, kind of thing? And he's like,
at them right now, but for a completely different reason. And that's because they get a copyright strike on my AOL video.
Oh, really?
They did. They claimed an ad from 1997 that I showed a couple seconds of.
That actually doesn't surprise me.
So
as much as I thought. They are very litigious when it comes to YouTube. Like, even tiny little clips of footage. There's a show that I watch called Botchamania, who can't put their show on YouTube because it's automatically claimed pretty much immediately. So they have to put it on Vimeo, and when they put the YouTube version up, they put a small version of the video in the corner and then put some other footage as a full screen to confuse the auto match, and it's unwatchable. Like, it's terrible. But yeah, WWE are really bad at matching that. But anyway, Dan was saying, yeah, this was really fun, and then I hit the free-to-play wall, basically, where there's no way I can advance unless I grind the fuck out of this or I buy shit. Because my guys are just not good enough. Like, they don't have the appropriate star rating, and you can't acquire that kind of thing. It seems like what you're saying right now is that you either haven't hit that wall or that wall isn't there. I mean, the game has only been out for, what, a week? So maybe we're not familiar with that yet?
It's offering the way... So, first off, the reward levels, there's numerous. So there's in-game questing, and then there's Nintendo questing. So the Nintendo quests are literally like all these different missions. That first one's like, you get 100 Nintendo points just for linking it to your account, right? And then the rest of them are 100 points just for beating each chapter. And you can do that on normal mode, which is relatively easy. And you don't need to have any like super characters. So you already, by the time you're done, you already have 1,000 free Nintendo points. You then can dump into buying upgrades and orbs and like all sorts of stuff. So Nintendo's already giving you that, like, here, take a little. Then you have quests, so you have monthly quests. And the way it works is you have a whole list of quests that are easy mode quests that you can do, and then once you beat those, then it unlocks hard mode quests. And then once you beat those, it's like, here are insane quests. So it isn't all that bullshit that's like, go beat all the Jawas, right? Like, that's saved for later. So right now I'm on the hard quest and I only have one left, and it's just win 10 intermediate duels, and I'm at 9 of 10 right now. And the hardest one in this chain was go do level 2-1 with only 3 people in your group instead of 4. But I'm level 30, and 2-1 on hard is level 13. So I'm just slaughtering them. And it's like, okay, your reward now is 1,500 of these crystals you need to upgrade people. So there's all these things that they give you. And so that's like monthly quests. And it isn't daily. So it isn't one of those things you have to be on every day to do. It's month of February. Then there's arena quests, which they last like 20 days to do these quests. And it's literally win 20 duels. Win arena duels right now. I have like 3 things that are all, it's kind of like the way Warcraft and Hearthstone, like people do those quests where it's you get 3 random quests, but 2 of them the exact same. They just have different rewards. Okay. And then there's your overall quest. You have a year to complete, and the first chain is beat all the levels of the story on easy or normal, which I did. The next one's beat all of them on hard, which I'm 2 away from doing. Right? So there aren't daily quests. The only thing you get daily is if you log in your base, one of your characters and one of your friends' characters will have little hearts above their head. And if you click them, they're like, have free stuff. And that's
the daily login reward kind of thing. Yeah.
There are no, and then because of the game just coming out, they give you 2 free orbs every day just for showing up. Yeah. So it's one of those things where, as a mobile game, it is super lenient on as someone who's played a lot of Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, and comparing the two, Brave Exvius definitely like a mobile game where you have to be on every day, and you have to do shit every day, and if you don't, you're gonna fall behind. And Fire Emblem is you can see it's on the same wavelength, but it's not the same. Like, it doesn't feel like you have to be there. Like, oh, I got to do this.
It feels a bit more lenient, at least right now, anyway. I have to wonder if it will remain that way, because there's been quite a few of those games that start off very much front-loading the experience is a way that a lot of mobile free-to-play games get you involved, and then once you've invested enough time, then you start running up against these walls, and you're like, well, a couple of dollars here, a couple of dollars there isn't, won't hurt too much, and then suddenly you're me with Clash Royale, where it's like, well, that was $1,000 I didn't need, I guess. But all
one
fucking
big
Galaxy
everyone
Heroes
has been losing their shit over, and this is something that, I mean, they've addressed clearly because it's changed. But in the first week of the game, people discovered that in order to grow your characters and unlock their potential, which is like moving them from 4 to 5 stars or whatever.
Okay.
The cost to do that, I'm going to go right now to Setsuna, who's one of my characters who's 4 stars. In order to upgrade her to 5, which you can do at level 20, I need 20 uncolored symbols, whatever they're called, and 20,000 feathers.
Damn.
Okay, I assume that's a lot.
Feathers, you cannot buy, like, with cash, these items. You cannot do it. So, feathers were supposedly in the game to get. The problem is you were getting, like, 15 at a time. And people were like, this is an impossibility. So, in the last few days, they've rolled out patches that have gone in and been like, here, this is how you get this shit. We're making it easier. So, the arena mode, for example, the arena questing that I have, one of the rewards is like win 20 duels, here's 1,000 feathers, or win 10 intermediate duels, here's 1,000. Like, they're giving you more and more, but that's really one of the problems is if you get a character and you're trying to get to 5 stars, it's relatively impossible to do right now.
Yeah.
The game's only been out a week, so it's one of those things where I will give them time. Also, I'm super biased because I got 4 5-star characters doing nothing.
It does sound like you were very, very lucky in that regard.
Yeah,
I imagine those that were not don't feel the same way.
But with that said, the difference I've noticed between 4 and 5 stars characters, while they have some cool abilities that are neat, it's still about how you play the game technically and with strategy.
Sure, to some extent.
I have 5-star characters who can still be one-shot by people who are way lower than them. If for example, Camilla is flying around on her dragon, if you shoot her with a bow and arrow, you're still going to do way more damage because that's the mechanic of the game.
Yeah.
Right? If you have if I'm sending Lucina with a sword at you and you have a guy with like a book, I'm still going to kick your ass. But at the same time, it's the mechanic works and it's really solid. And so it's one of the things that you can have a much better character, but if you're the same level, you can still beat them if you can pull off the strategy.
Sure. Okay. Well, I guess that might mitigate it a little bit. I think a lot of those games don't have enough strategy in them for that to really work. Going back again to Galaxy of Heroes, a lot of it is just down to pure stats. Like, it's a party-based RPG where everyone has like 2 or 3 different abilities and just take turns. There's not that much strategy you can really have other than your team composition and whether or not your team is good against the other dude's team. That's about as, and using the right abilities at the right time, that's about as far as it goes. And then there's some randomness and it's like, well, I just missed 3 times in a row. I'm dead, that can definitely happen.
Also, what's good about this game, and I forgot, is that the training modes and the story modes, all of it, I don't think Arena, although it gives you one of the characters, it tells you one of the characters is on the enemy team. Everything but Arena literally states at the bottom exactly what the composition of the enemies are in that. So going in, okay, well, they have 2 red swords and a green axe, and
so you can tailor your team. So you're not going randomly up against something that'll hard counter you.
So you aren't getting shit on. You actually can strategize. And
okay.
And because it's that easier level of strategy where you're not like, all right, what weapons am I bringing? Who am I equipping this to? Because it's literally just the base mechanic of the triangle and then moving pieces around to like manipulate the board. I'm down with it. It's a game that I will play until I run out of my stamina and then be like, all right, and put it down, and then might not touch it till tomorrow.
Bit of a time filler. Yeah.
Run out of stamina. Okay. Put it back down. And you're talking maybe 15 minutes a day.
All right.
Put into this.
That's reasonable.
I've really lucked out in that the characters I've gotten have been great. And you also have to game the system. Like, in the first couple of days you play, you can get a shit ton of orbs. And if you know who you're looking for and you know what characters are what, like when I discovered that, I was like, I got to have boobs on my team. If I can get Camilla, this is going to be awesome. I discovered she's a green axe. So I went in and was like, all right, I'm going to game this so I can get as many green symbols on my board so I can unlock all 5 of those at one time. And I got 5 green and was like, cool. And I unlocked every single one. And because it decreases, it was like first one's 5, next one's 4, next one's 4, and then it's like 3. And so if you stay on that one board of unlocks, it lowers the price. And the last one I got was Camilla because
all right.
Fuck if I understand how it works, but I did it. And there's definitely stuff there. It's a Fire Emblem game. It's not nearly as cool, and I'm not nearly as excited for it as I am Fire Emblem Warriors, but I love Fire Emblem.
Well, it doesn't seem like it's supposed to replace Fire Emblem. It's supposed to be more of a teaser for, hey, buy the real one. You know,
Right.
why didn't they put a real Fire Emblem game on iOS? Because they'd like to sell 3DS and Nintendo Switch, I would imagine. That's probably a lot to do with it. So it does make sense that they put a spin-off on there. Now, to make sure we don't have an hour of Clint sitting there saying, what the fuck are these guys talking about with their shitty mobile games, I'd love to hear what you have been playing this week. Whatever it may be. Old, new.
Really, the only thing I've been playing this week is Adobe Premiere, working on videos.
I know how that sometimes feels, yes.
That's about it. No, other than that, I've been going through Yakuza 0 ever since it came out.
Oh, yeah.
My God, I keep meaning to play that. I hear it's fantastic.
Tell me about that. I've heard a lot of good things. I mean, the Yakuza or Yakuza. What is the correct pronunciation? Is it Yakuza? Is that the correct one?
yeah.
Yakuza. Let's go with that. Yeah, they've always been pretty good, sort of flying a little bit under the radar kind of games. A lot of people. I remember playing the first one, I think, on PlayStation 2, and it felt a lot like Shenmue to me.
It still very much has that sort of idea going on. A lot of people, when they first see it, they're like, "Oh, it's a GTA thing," but it's so very far from that. You know, you have that aspect of an open-ish world to check out, but you know, it's all little contained instances of things going on, and you know, the game modes switch with every chapter. Sometimes you'll go hours without combat. Some of the other chapters, you'll just have combat endlessly as dudes keep coming at you like a 3D Streets of Rage.
Yeah.
Kind of. So, but yeah, for me, it's really just almost a virtual tourism aspect because you can just go and, you know, live. And then this one being based in the 80s, it obviously had my attention because you can go into retro 80s style Sega arcades. There's actual arcade games. There's little Sega Genesis figurines you can collect, and
that really is Shenmue then, isn't it?
yeah, it's all over the place as far as if you just want to dive into this little world. The only thing though that's kind of getting me is I've played all of them, I guess, except maybe the very first one. So I'm waiting for them to remaster that. And this is pretty much if you've played like Yakuza 3, 4, 5, you know, they're very much the same game.
Okay.
You know, there hasn't really changed much at all, except they've gotten a little bit of a graphical upgrade, and you know, they give a different story. Obviously, you play some different characters, but to me, at least, that's getting a little old. But at the same time, I'm just glad that it's finally getting an audience. I'm hearing a lot of people playing Zero as their first Yakuza game, and
yeah, the Yakuza games have really floated under the radar for some reason, like you were saying.
I think it may just be how Japanocentric a lot of them have been.
It's extremely Japanese, and a lot of it, even though they do an excellent job translating it, it's still very odd a lot of times, and that's part of the charm. But it's also a bit of a hurdle, I guess. And you know, for me, it's been like almost a game that I want to support no matter what, and say that they're amazing just because I want more people to buy them. But with this one, I feel like I can finally say, okay, it's getting, the formula is starting to show its age. But if it's like a game that you want to jump into and you haven't played a Yakuza game before, that's a great one.
I think I'm not sure if it's 0 or like 6 or something that's on its way out. That I saw
6 is sort of, I don't remember which one's coming first. There's a remaster, I think, of the first Yakuza coming out. I think that's the end of this year. And so that'll be cool, which is, I guess, right after 0. I haven't played it. And then, 6 is, you know, obviously out in Japan. It's been out for a year or two. So it'll be probably next year. So it's a good time to be a Yakuza fan.
Yeah, I actually heard a bit about 6 because there was a little video they put out. It's like, hey, we got a bunch of the New Japan pro wrestlers to put their moves into the game. And all the bosses use those moves. That's kind of neat because I just watched Wrestle Kingdom 11, which was their big, like, basically Japanese WrestleMania. And like, yeah, all these guys you just saw on the stage, you can do that. You do their moves in the game, and you can fight bosses that do that shit. And like, that's kind of neat. That sounds
There's always some
pretty
really
awesome.
strange little tie-ins they have with that. Like with 5, there was a whole giant section of the game where you played a 15-year-old girl trying to be a teen pop idol.
Oh,
so
okay.
that whole just hours and
Perfect.
hours of the game is that. So they got, you know, I don't know, I guess a bunch of local celebrities or something to do their, you know, likeness and the capturing and everything else. And I guess it means something if you're really that into the culture. I'm sure it would be something if you were local, but otherwise, to me, I'm just like, wow, that's a lot of something going on stage. I'm really not sure what that is.
Well, I guess there's the Japanocentric aspect of it, isn't it? Why that series has flown under the radar as much as it has. I'm glad that Yakuza 0 is getting some attention. I know it got my interest because, like, oh, this game actually runs at 60 on the PS Pro, so that's like 2 games in a few weeks that would do that, because NioH being... How the fuck do you pronounce that game's name? Well, NioH.
I've been saying NioH.
I think it's NioH.
NioH? Are we going with NioH?
Sure.
Where's my copy? NioH, yes, we're going with that.
NioH.
Yeah, let's just call it NioH for the time being. That runs at 60 as well on PS Pro, which is lovely. I was like, oh,
PS
cool.
Pro specifically for Yakuza 0. I'm like,
yeah,
I'm going to upgrade. It's going to be with this one because I don't know. That has been something that is severely hampered, especially 3, 4, and 5 on the PS3. They were kind of not pleasant to
just
play. They were
to
like
play.
in the 20s.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
A lot of times. So, and it helped, too, when it would go into something more restrictive. Because, like I said, it's not quite an open world. You get to a fighting section, and you're just fighting. Like, it'll, closes off things, and it goes into this very specific little arena that you sort of do battle in, and that helped. But when you're in the open world, you see Aggies everywhere and is screen tearing. Still get that on PS4, but not nearly as bad.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only reason I bought the Pro, is like, well, at least maybe some games will run better. They've got that boost mode in beta at the moment, which is
intriguing.
I watched a Digital Foundry video of comparison, and basically the boost mode is supposed to boost up games that haven't been specifically patched to run better with the PS4 Pro.
It's still like 5 to 10% or something like that. So
depends on the game.
Something from I saw on that video a lot of games were like, oh, it was 55 frames. Now it's about 60. So, which is nice. I'll take it.
It's good. Yeah, I think it depends on the game, but they were showing on some games like a 10-frame increase, which is a pretty impressive amount. And again, it's only supposed to really affect the ones that, one, are not frame locked. People say, well, why didn't they test Bloodborne? Well, because that's locked at 30. Boost mode may smooth out some of the frame instability that game sometimes has, but that's about all it's going to do. It's so weird that they need to have a specific function. It's like, this is more powerful hardware. If it was a PC, shit would just automatically run better. It's like, oh, you got a new graphics card.
Gamer, this whole generation confuses the heck out of me. I don't even understand why we need any of this software. It's just like, you know what? It's right there. It's in front of me.
You've got better hardware. Why doesn't it just run better? Well, that's just consoles for you. It's
fun.
But, at least there are the few games we are starting to see console games with options to let you run at that mode. NioH has, at least on PS4 Pro, has, I think, 3 different modes you can play at. Action mode being the 60 frames one. Then there's movie mode, which I laughed my arse off at. That's the 30 FPS log. It's more cinematic, guys. Might as well lock it to 24 then. And then there was some other variable mode. And I think on PS4 Pro, you can run it at 4K 30, or well, their version of 4K, which isn't really 4K, but you know what I mean. It's nice to get choice. Yeah, this is all I've ever wanted on console, honestly, is to be able to choose to run at a higher frame rate. I don't care. I'll run it at 720p. I don't give a fuck. I just want it. I want it to feel good. I don't care if it looks good. It already looks worse. Of course, it looks worse than my PC. My PC's way better. But I would just want it. I want those games to play well.
I think as people see the difference on consoles, because console players never had this option before. I think as people see the difference,
pretty rare.
See more and more people demanding 60.
I hope so. I'm trying to remember the last one that did it. I think it was it Final Fantasy either 11, if you go way back, or 14 had
14. 11.
It must have been 14.
I remember vividly did not have. It
had a mode
30.
that would run at 60. I know that, and I think there was like one other game like that, where you could do an unlocked frame rate, but I don't see the harm in having that option. I think the reason that they haven't done it up to this point, other than the fact it's extra work, is they're worried that someone that doesn't really know what's going on would pick it and say, oh, well, this game doesn't look as good now. Not really understanding the nature of, higher frame rate. But I think you've got to at least say to the people, like, look, the option's there if you want to use it. Just clearly explain what it does. Say, look, it'll run faster, it'll feel better, but it might look worse. That right. I think you're sorely underestimating the intelligence of most gamers, especially like core gamers.
I wish they would just hide it away somewhere, and if you
do that.
Look for it, it's in there. I would say just stick it in the manual, but games don't come with manuals anymore. So
no,
that's whatever. But at the same time,
yeah, Jesse, the light mode for Final Fantasy 15, is that up front, or do you have to go hunting for that?
I am under the assumption it's not even in the game yet. I know that it was promised, but I don't think it's actually in the game yet.
I think it is, but it's not the DLC. 60 frames update. Like, supposedly, from what I've heard anyway, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think light mode is currently in, but it doesn't give you 60 FPS unlock. It does give you more frame rate stability and better frame pacing, but the PS4 Pro patch that I think is supposed to be out this month is supposed to do the 60 FPS mode.
Yeah, it might be in. I haven't been back since they created the new
about it's March now for the update. That was supposed to be December,
which I need to do. Oh my god, I need to go back.
Yeah, well, I'll play that thing when they release that patch. I'll play that game when they do it. But yeah, I hope you're right, Clint, that it will encourage a few more people to start to care about this and have developers implement that feature. It can't be that hard. It really can't. For most of these games,
any programmer that I've been, talked to just said it really is just that simple in very many cases. In
most cases, yes. There is one case.
Some exceptions if you have a bad engine or if it was weird development hassles and it switched studios along the way, and then that happens a lot. But
it does
until that you get to that point. At this point, there's so many things that are made on solid engines, so it's fine. Whenever there's an Unreal Engine game on a console that doesn't have those options, I don't understand that because
it's built in. Yeah, you literally would have to go out of your way to not have that. You'd have to disable it specifically.
Literally make a choice consciously to disable.
Thoroughly bizarre that they would do that. Yeah, we'll actually be getting onto a story in the news segment a little bit later about one very game that was a hodgepodge of code mess and all that kind of thing. An intriguing story, a Little King story, perhaps. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the news segment later on in the show. That's Yakuza 0. I'm interested to know what you've been playing for your channel over the last couple of weeks, as to which games you've been delving into there on the retro side of things.
Yeah, well, honestly, the only one that is in the pipeline at the moment, well, there's two, I guess. I'm going to be doing a Morrowind review finally.
We'll get into that. Because you've done a lot of the older ones, even the spin-offs as well, yeah?
Yeah, I just finished up Redguard not too long ago. That was a couple weeks back, and that was an experience.
Yeah, I've heard some strange things about that one.
It's an interesting one. I've been wanting to talk about it for so long too, because not only is it a weird spinoff, the only Elder Scrolls Adventure spinoff that ever saw the light of day, but it also runs like complete garbage on the GOG version. And there's a lot of people that they buy it and they think, I could finally play this weird thing, and then they still can't. So I'm like, okay, I've got the hardware. I just got to make myself sit through it, and it's not as bad as I thought. It's just very Tomb Raider by way of Bubsy 3D. And the controls are not anything good to run.
There was a weird time period where I think that game came out as well, where they were turning RPGs into these weird third-person action games. Was it Crusaders of Might and Magic did something like that as well, and it ended up being jank as fuck. And they're like, we're going to take our RPGs and we want to go all Tomb Raider with them for some reason, because that was just the style at the time.
And it would have made sense almost if Redguard were even on a console, but it wasn't. So it has these very console-like controls. It's mapped to 4 buttons on a keyboard. So you have multiple functions for 4 buttons on a keyboard, which makes no sense whatsoever. They could have mapped it any number of ways, but I don't know if they were planning a PlayStation port or what for this game, but
maybe
that's kind of what it feels like. But yeah, Morrowind. I want to get back to that.
They just announced the Elder Scrolls Online expansion that's Morrowind.
Yeah, they did, yeah.
And I have got that on the way specifically for the box because I just want the box.
I just want to be a warden with a big old bear, bud.
Oh yeah, the bears are a thing.
Apparently that MMO has gotten better and better.
Yeah, I've really like it now.
Yeah. I've still got like a sealed copy I never opened. I got sent a copy when it first came out. I'm like, I just don't care.
That's because when it first came out,
don't play MMOs at launch, man. It's
shit.
I've made that mistake too. The last mistake I made playing on an MMO at launch was, I guess, the Old Republic, and
I think we all made that mistake.
I'm just like, well, never again. And now apparently it's getting better. So maybe I'll try more when that comes out. But until then, I'm playing the original because I don't know.
The plan for that now is you buy the game, but there's no subscription, right? That's how it works.
I think it's a buy-in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like some sort of
Tamriel
founder,
United or something like that.
It's
There's
like a
an
founder
unlimited,
bonus, right, for
right?
people that paid for it, and then they get
Yeah.
It's the
stuff.
Star Wars Old Republic model. Yeah. You can
Where
play, but if you
there's
want to
tiers
spend
of
money on
play.
it,
Yeah. I don't know. What was your opinion on the way that they changed that? Because like some people absolutely hate the way that Old Republic did its new business model. I didn't have too much of a problem with it. It was there was a game I used to play called Dungeons and Dragons Online, which I still think is probably one of the best
Oh my
MMOs
God.
ever.
Yeah, we started playing
We
that at
did.
the same time. We were like, this is actually pretty good.
It's good. It is good. It does a lot of things differently, and they did the whole unlimited model whereby it's like, oh, you play for free, but you got some restrictions. You can have a subscription, or you can just sort of, if you buy enough stuff in our store, we kind of give you this tier that you can use. So
Lord of the Rings Online was like their next one, right? And so that
yeah, they
I
did
played
the same
that one
thing
as
there.
well. It was a very
Yeah.
similar idea. It
Well-
was worked out for what it was until you got to that inevitable point where it's just, okay, wow, there's this giant area that I got to, and that is the next logical step. It was planned out in a way. It got me hooked for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
In Star Wars, the Old Republic, I can imagine starting from scratch with that model would be fine. Being a person who played on launch and then going back for the newest expansion to see what that was like, the difference is like it's a clusterfuck of panels and shit on your screen because everything's like, well, do you want to unlock this or what about this? You have all these items you can't have access to, but if you want to unlock them, I'm like, what? Like,
I haven't
is
played in a while.
mess.
I know when they first implemented it, it seemed okay, because if you'd ever been a subscriber, you got this tier above the standard tier, which seemed like, okay, well, I'm not subscribed anymore, but I've got access to pretty much what I want here. And then the lowest tier was like, fuck this, like 2 action bars, like 2 what kind of a restriction is that? Like, we're just gonna be a giant pain in the ass to you, basically, at that point. But maybe it's got worse since then.
It felt like a giant pain to the point where I was like, fuck it, here's $15. I want to experience this game as I played it originally.
I don't want to hate it.
Yeah, and when that happened, I was like, okay, well now it's fine. It looks way more dated than I thought. It
looked dated on launch. It was very plasticky. Did you notice that? Even when it first came out, it looked... I mean, it's not like Knights of the Old Republic was much of a looker in and of itself, but the MMO in particular did not look good on launch, and it certainly hasn't aged well.
It hasn't aged well. Like, the running is like... I was like, whoa, this seems super dated. Where, like, my Inquisitor is just like...
Yeah.
All right, then. Yeah, it's weird. But all the new stuff they're releasing has my interest. It's just... man, I can't get past how just old the game feels, and it's not that old, which is shocking to me.
They haven't done, I think, a great job on keeping it looking or feeling more modern. You know, I think even WoW, which is obviously a very dated game, has done a decent job of updating aspects of it to make it look a bit more modern, to make it feel a bit more modern, to overhaul parts of the UI. It's by no means the best looking game, but it still sort of stands as like, oh, WoW doesn't look awful. Like, it has its own fairly unique aesthetic, and it still works. They just happen to have made it a bit better over the years.
They keep updating models. They keep even models that you didn't think needed an update. Suddenly you're like, oh, that looks better somehow.
You don't even realize until you see it. It's like, oh yeah, like the Centaur used to look like absolute shit, and now it looks a lot better. All that
that's
kind
what
of
happens
thing.
when you have a shit ton of money. You keep throwing it at a game.
True enough,
you can make it better. And you can understand the difference between that and Star Wars, where Star Wars, they literally stopped. Like, they're like, we're just gonna make new content, but they stopped improving the core of what the game is.
Sure,
so it looks super dated.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that's why because I play Final Fantasy 14 every week, and people always wind up coming into my chat and being like, is this game like worth the sub? And I can honestly say, like, they constantly put out big story patches. They're constantly adding stuff, improving stuff. Like, they use your money to make sure that the game always looks good and runs good and has new stuff. So it really does depend on what they wind up doing with that subscription if they're going to use that model.
Yeah. Going back to Morrowind for a second, it's not so much the way the game looks, because I still think that game looks pretty good. I mean, in terms of faces, Bethesda's never done faces well.
UI? Is that what it is? UI?
To me, going back to it, what makes it difficult is the mechanics feel a bit archaic compared to Oblivion and Skyrim. Have you found that that's an issue for you? I mean, obviously, I guess it compares very well considering you played Arena and Daggerfall prior to this. But...
yeah, in my perspective, I try to sort of take a step back whenever I'm covering one of these, because, a lot of people will ask, why are you reviewing a game that's however old when it's not even relevant anymore and things have moved on so much? But I think it's fascinating to go back with that sort of modern look, but also try to put yourself in the shoes of what it was when it first came out. And I did play that when it first came out, and I thought that it was absolutely magnificent. Now I am really getting frustrated. And it is, everything from the questing journal to the navigation to cliff racers to just, everything about the way that you interact with this world, it does not have that same magic anymore. And, maybe if I get drunk enough, it would, but I don't know what I can really do at this point to make that happen again. So I'm hoping that I don't disappoint too many people by saying, well, this doesn't really hold up how you thought. At the same time, for those people that are in that camp, I want to present two sides. You can have plenty of people that still like that original way of playing with all the clunky stuff. Or there's plenty of mods out there that have completely overhauled Morrowind to hell and back, and it's a completely different game with the community that's out there. And there's tons of remake projects. There's still that one, I think they're trying to make it Skywind, I believe.
Skywind, yes.
Skywind, so that's a thing. And then, with this Morrowind online expansion, I was reading somewhere that they actually, for the map in the MMO, they took the original Morrowind map, brought it over, and it's doing a one-to-one recreation of it. So I'm wondering how close that's going to be in Elder Scrolls Online, if they're taking the original map, height maps and everything, and just sort of redoing them. It's a neat idea. I don't know if that's ever really been done before, taking a straight up old school map and then just adding a bunch of junk on top of it. So
I think, didn't they do that for Far Cry Primal? They pulled a bunch of map from Far Cry 4 and just
that was
redid
a year old, right? So
yeah,
at least that was the same engine. And so with this, it's a completely different thing. I don't know. It would just be weird.
That far back.
Say if they took, I don't know, Duke Nukem 3D's level and stuck it into Duke Nukem Forever. It'd arguably be a better game, but that would just been bizarre to me to see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. What I'm intrigued to know is whether or not people were very interested in Morrowind as a setting, and as a result, ESO and of course the Skywind mod end up being successful, or whether they enjoyed Morrowind for other reasons, whether it be the quality of the questing, the quality of the writing, or maybe they're really odd and actually enjoyed the combat system, which was essentially a dice roll under every swing. It kind of gives this illusion of physicality in real-time combat.
There's a mod for Morrowind that makes it 1-to-1, and it just doesn't work. It makes it almost even more boring, which is weird, because it's just not made to work that way. So every combat thing just becomes if you have numbers, you're going to win. And by very long at all, you do have the numbers, and you can overtake just about anything. So it was very clearly implemented that way for some reason, and it worked at the time, but it's almost like taking the timer out of Dead Rising, like they did for Dead Rising 4.
Yeah.
Take that out of there. People complained about it, but then you take it out and they complain even more because, well, now you've taken away the identity of it. And the combat for Morrowind is kind of similar to me for some reason.
That does make a lot of sense. Morrowind, I think the difference between Morrowind and Oblivion was Morrowind was more of a pure RPG. Oblivion was maybe when they kept a lot of the RPG elements, but they started saying, we want a little bit more open world action in this. We want to start moving in that direction. And then you see them do that with Skyrim and with Fallout 4 as well, where they strip away more RPG elements and all that sort of thing. And that just seems to be the direction they're going in at the moment.
Right.
Which evidently is not a bad thing because they're selling trillions of copies or whatever for doing it. But I think for those...
It works. And apparently they can re-release Skyrim every few years, and it does fine too. So
evidently, yeah. There's a thing. Yeah, I don't think I have the patience to go back to Morrowind at this point. It feels a little archaic. That there's some stuff that stands the test of time. I think
it's just a really long game too.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. That's why I don't do these reviews very often. And I've been doing a lot more, hardware and everything like that recently because, well, I don't know, not just more people watching it, but I get more enjoyment out of it these days because,
I think it's a lot of the 3D RPGs and things like that are the ones that don't necessarily hold water and don't stand the test of time. I went back and played the original Fallout recently. And while obviously resolution-wise, it's a bit, you blow it up to modern resolution, it's like, wow, I can see half the map. Everything's tiny. But it still plays well because the base mechanics and the UI was a bit odd. It was overly stylized.
The inventory is particularly strange.
Yeah, a bit fiddly.
But, yeah.
I remember back then when that was how UI design was done. It's like the UI must be as thematic as possible, at the expense of all logical functionality if need be. We need to have giant fucking red thematic buttons. There's got to be a flip up cap to make sure you don't accidentally press the end turn button. You've got to bring the cap up before you press it. And it's like there's a certain charm to that. And then you think about it compared to modern UIs, which are all function over form. And you're like, yeah, I can understand why they moved away from that, because a lot of this was getting ridiculous. But especially with Fallout 2, I think in particular, and Fallout Tactics as well, those UIs were relatively good, and the combat still stands the test of time really well. The game still looks pretty good. It's one of those nice isometric with a lot of pre-rendered assets, which do stick around quite nicely.
They're still very playable. I'm surprised by the number of people that, they'll go back and they've never played anything but, say, Fallout 4, and then they'll, come back 2 weeks later to me and be like, wow, you were right. This is actually something that still holds up, mainly for the story. The story in those is just unbelievably cool still. It just so many variety of options and, the really in-depth dialogue. I mean, even some good voice acting here and there.
Great amount of choice in there as well.
Very much about choice, yeah.
Yeah, there's a game that I actually played. As people are probably aware, I was on the metal boat once again. I went on the metal cruise, 70,000 tons of metal. But that usually means, well, I've got no internet. They actually do have internet on cruise ships now. I deliberately decided not to get it. I'm like, I want 4 days away from the internet. Fuck the internet. Kind of glad I did. But I brought a few things on my iPad to play, and I brought Banner Saga 2 along because that has a mobile port, which is relatively good. There's a couple of issues with it because, of course, it's touch control. It can sometimes get a little bit fiddly, so you've got to zoom in to get the precise movement and not fuck it up, and the UI is a little, it'd be better on a PC. But I played the whole thing start to finish, having I beat the original Banner Saga. I hadn't touched Banner Saga 2 yet, for some reason. A lot of people hadn't touched it because they hadn't even realized it came out. It had very little promotion behind it. It wasn't a Kickstarted game, so it didn't have the huge Kickstarter hype behind it, which is part of the reason why they've gone back to Kickstarter for Banner Saga 3, because that actually, the Kickstarter is more of a publicity and discoverability thing, as well as it is a funding thing. But I played it, and there's a game of fucking choice. And that's one of the things I really appreciated about it. There is a ton of choice in Banner Saga 2, and they have real consequences. Even up to the very last battle, there are choices, not only in terms of dialogue, but in terms of like these different grades of failure state. A lot of it is like, oh, you can lose a battle. You can, but there's going to be a consequence for that. It's not just game over. It's like if you lose a battle, you're gonna suffer in some way.
Can I tell you how excited I am that you finally made your way through that? I'm like,
it's good.
I want people to get on this hype train. It's a game that's really, really good, and people are just like, I'll get around to playing it. I'm like, no, play this shit.
Don't overlook it.
Your mind.
Yeah,
I've been in that boat for the Banner Saga. I don't know why. I even talked to the developers once or twice at PAX, and it's just, this seems really cool. I'll have to look into it when I get home, and then I never do, and I feel bad now.
It's a game that you need to at least start with the first one. The second one I think is better than the first one, but
I agree.
It's a trilogy of games that the story is continuous through them, and it's such
choices matter.
Everything, I think everything matters in this game. It's so good that I'm just like, you gotta play this shit. You have to. It's one of those games that down the line people look back and be like, yo, did you play that? That was like, it's a defining story. It's really, really good.
Yeah, playing the first one is great because there's a lot of carryover. There's one big decision at the end of Banner Saga 1 that has a big effect on Banner Saga 2, but there's a lot of little stuff and characters that you can get, or characters that end up dying so they don't show up in Saga 2. It reminds me of the Shining Force trilogy and games like that that did similar things. And obviously number 3 is coming out to end the trilogy. I played 2 on mobile and hadn't played 1 on mobile, so I couldn't carry my save file over. It does let you pick the one major decision.
Gotcha.
But obviously I missed out on having some characters and some storyline and lore and decisions that tied into the last one because I didn't have a save file to import. So if you are going to play it, I'd play it on PC and start with number 1 and go from there. But I was really into the story because they tied it so much into decisions that you had to make as a leader, and there was often not an obvious right answer.
It's a very Witcher-esque approach. I don't know how to describe
there's
it.
a lot
there is
shades of gray.
There is no right answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of shades of gray in that game. There are some like optimal choices that are clear, like this was the right call, but most of it is like, I can see why you would choose that, you know? And they might penalize you in some way. Sometimes it's just, okay, get the choice which does the least damage to you. You know, that's a very FTL-like thing. But there was just so much choice and so much consequence as a result. And once I'd beaten the game, I went back and I read a full choice walkthrough and saw the trees and the consequences. Like, whoa, there was a lot more in here than meets the eye. It's very easy, I think, to make a game with the illusion of choice, where none of that really matters. Banner Saga is not that game.
It's not a Telltale game, is what you're saying.
No, it's not. It's not a Telltale game. Like, those decisions are going to have real fucking consequences. Sometimes it's just numbers from your party. Even then, though, I felt a tinge of guilt. Like, it just is minus 15 clansmen, minus 12 fighters, minus 4 Varl. I always felt guilty for the Varl. It's like, fuck, these guys are on the edge of extinction. My fucking decision. 5 of them, more of them are dead now. I'm like, fuck. Why did I do that? That was terrible. But of course, you have to stick with the consequences of it. But the real consequences and stuff like that mean you miss entire sections of the game. Characters die, which have... there's a particular character that can die that can have a massive effect towards the end of the game if you let that character die. Didn't realize that. Shit tons of stuff happened. Changed the entire nature of the end game. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, it looks great. It always has. The rotoscoped animation style is very unique. You don't see a lot of that in games. The animation has this very otherworldly, almost uncanny valley feel to it as a result of that rotoscoping. Looks awesome. There's a ton of character variety this time in terms of new classes to play. Okay, let's guess a minor spoiler, but I ended up getting a horse person, which was great, and a bear.
Very nice.
I got a bear. I think it was called like Bone Grinder or something. The bear. So I was pretty happy about that.
Bears are hot right now.
They are. That's a big thing. It's going to be the year of the bear this year. I can guarantee it. The combat still got that weird thing about it that some people don't like, where HP and attack power are the same. So if your strength goes lower, you don't hit as hard, which makes logical sense. But simultaneously, some people argue it's like, this feels terrible when you've got a guy that's almost useless as a result. It's like, oh, he's on 1 strength, so he can barely hit anything. All he can do is armor breaks or maybe a special ability or something. But I find because of the amount of class variety in Banner Saga 2, that becomes less of a problem, because there's a lot of the classes that are much less reliant on having a lot of strength and can just do useful abilities and support stuff and all that kind of thing. It's hard, too. Like, it's a difficult game in order to do the battles properly, and there's consequences for having people get knocked down as well. So yeah, I played the whole thing start to finish, and I enjoyed the hell out of it, and if you haven't played the original Banner Saga, then fucking play the original Banner Saga. Play number 2. A lot of people are overlooking it. You shouldn't be overlooking it. It's better. You also get to play two different parties of people on 2 different separate but connected stories as well, which is great, because that gives you a lot more combat variety. Like, then there's one guy where you're probably going to want to make the nasty, like, mean decisions, because his guys will respect him for doing that, and it's out of character if he doesn't. So I found that to be a nice little change.
Yeah, this is definitely a straight up play the character kind of game. Like, figure out what your character is and play it that way, and you'll have a much more fun experience. Yeah,
it's role-playing. It's legitimate role-playing, but it's not role-playing. You get to do whatever you want kind of role-playing. It's no, you are role-playing a specific character. And if you act out of character, you'll probably get suboptimal results. Not always, though. There's even achievements for, like, softening up a character and stuff like that. It's like, hey, yeah, you made that person feel a lot better, and they didn't expect that because you're a big meanie usually, all that kind of stuff. But a lot of the time, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? You know? Well, you've lost your, you've completely lost your edge or whatever, and people just start protesting with you. Yes, Dodger's audio's fucked, by the way. We're fixing it out. We're fixing it during the break. If you hadn't figured it out, it's like, why is Dodger not talking? Like, no, Mike went out. We're gonna fix that in a couple of minutes.
Silenced her permanently from the show.
She persisted.
Yeah.
Terrible, really.
It's terrible.
Indeed. She's impugning the character of others. Just terrible, and she persisted. But that game is great. Obviously, if you pick it up on mobile, it's cheaper. I found it playable on iOS with a big screen. I wouldn't play it on a phone, because those little tiles, there's a lot of little tiles. You're going to be doing a lot of pinch zooming in order to not fuck it up. And since it doesn't have an undo button, miss mistapping can actually lose you a fight. I've restarted several fights because I've mistapped. I'm like, well, my main guy's gonna die now. I best restart the fight. You know, that's not even an XCOM style thing where it's like, hey, that's XCOM, you just deal with it. It's like, no. This was, I fucked up because the screen's too small. I'd still play it on PC, but it's a really good portable game though, no doubt. So yeah, have a look at Banner Saga 2, and obviously Banner Saga 3 currently in crowdfunding, has passed its goal, is currently working on stretch goals, so hopefully that does well. I think there's still 20 days to go for funding that, so there's definitely still interest in Banner Saga, even though number 2 didn't sell that well, because people are throwing money at it, obviously, so seems to be the way to go. We're going to a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the games that we've been playing this week. We'll hopefully try and fix Dodger's microphone in the process. You're watching the Corruptional Podcast. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Co-Optional Podcast.
I'm back.
Great.
Yo.
Fixed it. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I know you've missed my dulcet tones.
Official endorsement, don't buy Scarlett audio interfaces.
Oh my God, it's just been, I don't know if it's the cord or if it is the interface. I'm just not sure, but.
We've gone through 3 of those things. Like
Really?
Apparently a lot of the audio interfaces in the kind of $150 to $200 range, because they're very competitive price-wise and they're very low margin, have a tendency to break, as it turns out.
Dude, I've actually gone through 2 of them, and I just used them for those cassette decks back
there. You go.
They don't do anything with them except tape.
Let me tell you guys the exact same thing. I have I have a big Scarlet one, and it's a much more pricier version. And while I haven't had anything break, I have had 100%. It's much quieter, as you've probably noticed recently. But also, more importantly, it has an issue with my internal capture card, in that whenever I try to capture audio from Skype, there's a like in the background.
Yeah.
So like, maybe Scarlet just ain't the way to go, internet. I'm gonna be real honest.
Hey, you want to know the way to go?
Ain't the way to go.
You go that way.
I'm in. I want that so badly. I'm in. That's.
This one's a bit dented, as you can notice. I put a notch as to where the volume's supposed to be for recording.
Perfect.
I mean, this I think is 5. This is my 5-year-old Babyface. I finally traded it in for the Babyface Pro, which is sitting on over there. Mostly because I couldn't allow Krendor to have better audio gear than me. That doesn't seem right somehow.
Wait, Krendor has a Babyface Pro?
He does, yeah. He's got a Babyface Pro and I think an SM7B. So he's packing.
Who is this guy?
Krendor's packing, man.
Oh yeah.
Is he?
Yeah.
What's happening?
I mean, it is a bit pricey, but
gonna play some level. Yeah.
It's the only way you can get his astonishingly
Pick it all up. You gotta pick it all
ASMR
up.
tones. Yeah, he's too quiet for any other interface. That's why. But yeah, be careful with your interfaces. Don't necessarily buy cheap, because they do have a tendency of breaking quite often. The wife's gone through 3 of them and is just, I think, going to steal my old Babyface at this point because she's sick of it. All right, let's get back onto games that we have been playing.
I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
I played a short point-and-click story game called The Frost Rune.
The Frost... Is this on mobile? I thought I saw this on mobile as well. Maybe it's on Steam as well. I had stumbled across this and then realized that was a point and click, so I probably won't like it.
Yeah, it's funny because I was looking at the pictures for it when it first came out, and it looked like it was a hidden object game, and I was like, I don't know if I want to play a hidden object game. Like, normally they don't. Even if they have story, the times where you're supposed to just sit there and find objects is so jarring. You know, the story doesn't feel like it's flowing right.
Oh, interesting.
But the imagery in it was so cool that I was like, no, I'm gonna try it out. I'm gonna try it out. And it's not a hidden object game at all. The storyline is that you are a 13-year-old girl who is shipwrecked. You're the only person who lives through this big shipwreck. And the island that you land on is undergoing like a magical frost. And the whole island is starting to freeze over, specifically where there are like sacred stones and things. And you are visited by the dead seer who used to live on this island. And she kind of like tells you what's going on, and basically that you're the only living person left, so you're like the only person who could potentially like reverse the frost. It's cool. It was a really, really cool. The music, gorgeous. The pictures and like the imagery in it, really, really cool. I liked it. It only took me like, I'm trying to think. I think like 2 hours, maybe something like that. It's short, but it sounds like they want to make a series of them. and it was cool.
Speaking of games that age well, shout out to point and clicks. Point
Yeah.
and clicks.
Point and clicks.
You know what?
Yes
Shout out
and
point
no.
clicks.
Yes and no. I will disagree with you on a certain point. I think that you can definitely still go back and
point and click.
You can definitely go back and play a point and click, mostly because they have very simple mechanics and interfaces. It's pointing and clicking. Most of the time, that bit is relatively logical, although not always. I'll say that. There are some particularly older ones that aren't. The problem I have with point and clicks is Moonlogic. The fucking late 80s, early 90s trend of Moonlogic has not aged well. That stuff makes no fucking sense. The Discworld games in particular are unbelievably guilty of Moonlogic, to the point where most of the time you're using a walkthrough to figure a lot of that out.
There was a really interesting video by Pushing Up Roses on that exact topic like a week or two ago.
Where do you think I got the term from? I'm pretty
There
sure.
you go.
Yeah, I stole that from. There you go. You've properly accredited it. Thank God you're here, because I couldn't remember where I'd seen that. I knew I didn't come up with that phrase myself. Someone else coined that one.
Yeah, she was talking about how it really did change in the whole atmosphere of what people thought about point and click games and what was attractive about them, and everything from the dollar value going in, and just I don't know, the designers thinking that it was a good way to pad out things, but also being something that was not necessarily off-putting for a long time.
You know what? You're absolutely right. I have the perfect example of this. Last night, when I got back from my travels, the Scary Game Squad gang and I got together and we played through the new mode of Resident Evil, which is this. Essentially, it's a first-person escape room point and click. Pretty much what it is. You're stuck in a room and you have to get out before you're detected, right? And so you go through all these processes. Anyway, the whole point of it, much like a point and click, is that you are discovering a certain thing, finding its use, and then using it, and then sort of manipulating the world around it with this item, right? There is a moment in this thing, and I won't spoil it because a video is coming, but there's a moment where there's an item that you need. We could not find. There was nothing directing you to it, but when we did find it, it was just a hidden item, and then it suddenly unlocked all this stuff, but there was no clue, and it was the only thing with no clue. And unless you randomly stumble upon it or had a walkthrough, I don't know how you would find this shit. And it bugged me so much because the rest of the game was so much polished, more polished than this one item, that going back, it reminds me of those point and click moments where it's like, how the fuck would I ever know that? And when we finished it, my whole impression of this one new DLC was like, that shit was amazing, but that item, fuck that. That will bug me forever because it was pointless to be where it was, and to have it didn't make sense with the rest of the game, and it took you out of it. And so I understand completely what you're talking about right now.
It's talking about games like Frost Rune too. I wonder if because that's a hidden object thing. I'm wondering if the popularity of those rose in conjunction with the depopularity of Moonlogic, because
possibly
there's very little of that, I think, at least from the ones that I've played that are more hidden object things. It literally is just finding objects.
Sure. Yeah, there isn't a lot of Moonlogic in those games. I think that what we probably saw is we had the golden age of point and clicks, mostly, the LucasArts one, Scum VM, and all that kind of stuff that you can still play and are still very good to this day. You then had a fall off in that, but coming from that, you had a couple of different schools of thought as to how to keep doing point and clicks. One of those schools of thought was hidden object. It was to take aspects of point and click, take away the Moonlogic, and turn it into...
It was like pixel hunting turned into a full game.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's absolutely what it was. And then you had the more Telltale approach, which Telltale's a great case study in it because they started by making point and clicks, specifically remakes of Monkey Island and Sam & Max. And then they deviated even further from that. They were like the intermediate step, and then they went full Telltale, which is the narrative QTE dialogue choice-based games that they now do. So they've kind of been on both sides of the fence, and that now you have these more traditional point and clicks, which honestly never really went away. There were still European companies making them. Daedalic has published a ton of them. You're talking about things like The Whispered World. You're talking about Deponia, games like that. There's quite a few, and that were still being made. So I don't think point and clicks ever necessarily went away, but they did fragment into different subgenres. And I think you're right that the rise of hidden objects did come along with the fall of the traditional Moonlogic kind of game. If you do want to watch the Moonlogic video, by the way, I'd highly recommend it. It's by Pushing Up Roses, as you mentioned. It's called Did Moonlogic Kill Adventure Games? Go and have a quick look at that.
For those in chat and people who are watching who are like, what the fuck is Moonlogic? It literally is just a puzzle that is, it's an illogical puzzle that is made to frustrate you and stretch out the length of the time of the game and not really be something that is a logic, like you'd ever jump to that conclusion. It's like a twisted, warped conclusion of what you as a player would understand.
That's how sorry, I know that I probably still sound like a robot.
Actually, you sound fine now.
Sound fine.
Great.
Strange.
That's how all like early point and clicks used to be for the most part, right?
A great example, like King's Quest, for example. I don't remember which one it was. One of them had a point and click thing where you had to find a girdle, but it was behind the actual scenery of the game. So you had to like break the logic of the game to find it, which is like, what the fuck? How would you ever know that? That used to happen all the time.
Yeah. Discworld, there's 3 Discworld games, Discworld 1, 2, and Noir. They're all great, but I played
in particular is, as far as Moonlogic, I mean, the frog puzzle and everything like that, the weird bending of just space-time to even solve that.
Even if you understand the Discworld lore a lot, and Discworld is fucking weird in and of itself, you still wouldn't get the puzzles. Like, that doesn't help at all. I did almost the entire game on Sega Saturn with a walkthrough, just simply because I wanted to experience the voice acting and the experience of Discworld. And I was fine doing that. I didn't need to play, and figure the puzzles out, and I would have never figured them out anyway. They were fucking ridiculous. By the time we got to Noir, it got a bit less insane, but those games in particular, Grim Fandango has tons of Moonlogic in it.
Fandango has tons of that shit.
Yeah, you've got to watch out for that, and it's not just you only get this if you understand the world and the references. It's beyond that. Like I said, it's just to the point where unless you are exactly in the head of the designer, you will never figure this shit out. In a million years, it's just not, you're not on the same wavelength.
Too, to think about, at least for me, when I look back at all these game boxes that I had, especially from Sierra and LucasArts, and they had in there the little package ad that says, okay, well, you're stuck, call our hint line, pay a lot of money to figure this stuff out. And then once everybody got the internet, those were obsolete, and those puzzles started to go away. There's this really interesting trend all along that spectrum, I think, and really culminating in hidden object puzzles, which I've never really been into hidden object, except for one exception really is the virtual reality. There's a few VR hidden object games that I've played that is really fascinating. And
I would probably have a lot of fun with that.
So imagine, Frost Rune, but you're there in first person looking around instead of, whatever else. And it's a really cool idea. There's some of them for Gear VR as well as the Vive and whatnot. So I think that there's still a lot of potential to even be unlocked within hidden object stuff. A lot of people discard that as sort of a non-game, but I think it's a really fascinating idea that, it's getting better.
Yeah, well, that's why I was so excited when I started to see VR escape room games, but I have yet to play one that really makes any sense or is like kind of clean to play, I guess.
You would love the new DLC for Resident Evil. It's not like a scary mode. It's straight up. The whole premise is you are trapped in a room and the mom is like has you chained to a bed and you need to escape the bed and figure out a way out of the room, but she from time to time comes back in to check on you and you need to set everything out back the way it was and then get back in bed.
No, thank you. That sounds terrifying. I don't want to do that.
Fuck that.
No, it isn't like she like just shows up and is like, gotcha. A timer comes on. So if you have 1 minute before she comes back in the room, you can hear her coming up the stairs. So you have to like reset things and then get back into bed. And then she looks around the room and she's like, I wonder if anything's different here. So it's not like a scary mode. It's a more challenging puzzle mode. So it's an escape room. Plus she's eventually checking in on you. So you have to make sure you're outsmarting her. But there are also things where it's like, you have to be very careful about what you do. You don't want to like jam anything or rip anything or tear anything or break anything. Cause it's like, oh, she will notice that shit. It's a very interesting mode. It might be one of like the coolest things I've seen in a long time in a game. I kind of love it.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're seeing that coming back in there. But I tell you this for a fact, I have no interest in continuing to play point and clicks. I do love watching people play point and clicks, especially those that know what they're doing. I'll watch a straight up. I always recommend to people, go watch on YouTube, assuming that it hasn't been taken down, Grim Fandango the movie, which is just somebody with no commentary playing it and nailing every puzzle perfectly, because that is a very enjoyable movie. The dialogue is great. The stuff that happens on screen is great. I just don't want to play that. I want to watch it. I don't want to be the one trying to figure that out for 8 hours. That's just fucking annoying at that point.
See, I've always heard that the Grim Fandango was less Moonlogic-y, I suppose. More
compared to
straightforward.
Maybe compared to something like Day of the Tentacle,
compared to the older ones. I mean, I have played through Day of the Tentacle. I've still never played Grim, but I've heard that one is like more approachable, I guess, except for maybe the tank control.
Grim is really like, the humor in Grim is fantastic. I think that there are elements to Grim Fandango that keep you wanting to play it, so you won't.
It's compelling,
fast,
no doubt.
But it has plenty of stuff where you're like, that wasn't intuitive at all.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's a matter of degrees, It's a matter of degrees. Compared to some of the really old stuff, I mean, like Full Throttle Day of the Tentacle and some of the Simon the Sorcerer games. Yeah, it's probably less Moonlogic, but that doesn't mean there's no Moonlogic in it. There's plenty, and it's as annoying and frustrating, I think, especially these days. It can be a bit of a pain in the ass. All right, well, there you go. Maybe just play hidden object games. I mean, there's a reason why hidden object games are so popular, incredibly popular genre.
The reason that I've even touched a couple of them is because, I actually feel like I might have a little bit of patience for this, where I feel like I ran out of patience for a lot of point and clicks around Leisure Suit Larry 6 or something like that. So
often depends on theme.
Speaking of Leisure Suit Larry, God bless
Do we
those
have
games.
to? Do we have to?
The Moonlogic in those games is insane, but because you're like a 14-year-old boy, you're like, I don't care, I'm finding them boobs. I don't care how I get to them.
that was it.
I remember the later games, they basically just mostly
works.
turned it into like QTEs and like reflex puzzles for the most part, because they were like, no one's playing this game for the puzzles, let's be honest with it.
I don't care how I get to them boobs, but I'm going to do it. I'm just going to throw items at the screen. I'll get there. I think with hidden object games in particular, maybe the reason we don't play more of them is that most of them are not marketed towards us as more core gamers. They realize that there's a massive market amongst older people. A lot of them are marketed towards women in particular, are more casual gamers. So the themes that they use are often the ones that are more appealing to them as opposed to that would be more appealing to us. So that's probably why we don't play as many of them. And why, when I have tried to play them, I think I did a video a couple of years ago on House of 1,000 Doors. I'm like, this is cheeseball. Who would play this? And then I realized, wait a minute, this is exactly the sort of stuff my mother-in-law watches on television. Mm-hmm. Exactly, like the whole murder mystery and everything, and the theme, and the crazy old woman psychic and everything. This is just what she watches on Hulu. No wonder this is the market that they're aiming for here, and It's interesting to see that, because I think for the longest time, we've always assumed as core gamers, we're the guys we're always going to be marketed to and appeal to. That's not really necessarily been true for the last 10 years or so. There's this huge selection of games on mobile and on PC, on Facebook, on social media platforms that were not marketed towards us, and that's totally cool.
Yeah, I feel like Farmville was the start of a lot of that.
I think it did.
Being like, holy shit, moms are a market. Moms will play this shit.
Yes.
My mom does a Sudoku puzzle and a crossword puzzle every single morning.
Uh-huh.
And both of those have, like ads for different games to potentially play. And every time a hidden object game one pops up, she's like, this looks so fun. Do you think I should try it? I think that I might try this. It just looks so cute.
They know they're marketing to.
One of these days, I'm going to hit that ad because that looks like a fun game. And I'm like, shit, it works. They know.
I went through that experience with my mother, actually. And I was able to sort of direct her, based on what she'd played through like Facebook and stuff, to stuff that's a bit closer to core that was still interesting to her, but it was very interesting to find out what was a hit and what was a miss with her. Like I'd propose her a bunch of different games. Every time she comes over, I always recommend her stuff and like download stuff onto her phone. Sometimes it works, sometimes she doesn't like it. I was very surprised to see that she didn't like 80 Days, for instance. I thought as someone that she loves reading and stuff like that. I thought, hey, 80 Days will be very appealing. She didn't like it at all. And her logic for that was, if I don't want a text-heavy game. If I want to read, I want to read. I don't want sort of reading to be heavily involved in the game. and she's not big into the whole choice consequence thing, apparently.
Right.
I thought that was interesting. But, I had her playing the original Puzzle Quest, which she still loves and still plays a lot. She played, I got her playing a ton of Peggle, and she played original Plants vs. Zombies and things like that as well. And there's a bunch of stuff on iOS, which is really neat. She loved, what was the name of that game a few years ago that was where you sort of slid the landscape around? It was very, very MC Escher-esque.
Shoot.
Echo Chrome?
It wasn't that. It won a bunch of awards and did really well. Monument Valley, that's the one. Yeah. She liked that. And there was another one quite recently, which was sort of twist the level around to direct the robot to its destination game that she liked that was quite similar to that too. But it is always intriguing to see where the crossover points are and which game, can you bring someone who's quintessentially an older casual gamer into the more core market and which are the titles that work and which don't. It's fascinating. Pretty cool. Yeah, there you go. So there's a random section of Moonlogic for whatever reason. Did play a couple of other things. I played a iOS version of a board game which I've been very interested in, and I just ordered today because I played the iOS version on the boat and very much enjoyed it. It's called Potion Explosion.
Okay.
So it won a bunch of awards apparently last year. It's like, hey, this is, one of the really great new board games. As you're probably well aware, for the last few years, we've been having a real renaissance in board gaming. It's become far more popular. There's some amazing board games coming out right now. Absolutely huge. And Potion Explosion got an iOS version, so I thought, hey, I'll play it on that, because those versions are often great for teaching you how to play the game nice and easily. I'm a very visual learner, not much of a... Can't really... Yeah, I don't know if it's on... there
it is.
You found it? Yeah. So it's a puzzle board game, essentially. You can probably... It's a little bit match 3. A little bit, but not much. So the idea is that you're trying to gather the ingredients to brew potions, and you've got 2 potions at a time that you're supposed to brew with different colors. The way that you get them is you can grab one of the little marbles. In the physical version, it's a marble setup with like sliders and stuff, which is pretty cool. You pick the colored marble and it goes on your potion. And once you got all the ingredients, you can brew up the potion, you mix it up, you gain points for that potion, and you gain an effect that you can use once per game from the potion. Basically, you get to drink the potion and do shit. However, to gain resources much, much faster, you can cause potion explosions, which is if you remove a marble from a vertical row and it causes 2 or more of the same color to connect, it causes an explosion, which means you also get those marbles, and you can cause chain reaction and stuff like that. And combine that with using potions to your advantage to gain different colors, and you can also store different colors in your... There you go. There's your potion explosion. You can store up to 3 colors in your little storage files every turn for next turn and stuff like that.
Huh.
And you've got what's a really interesting competitive puzzle game of sorts, which has shades of match 3, but a ton of strategy, and it's competitive with up to 4 players. And I enjoyed the hell out of that. I played a few rounds with Jen, and she enjoyed it a lot as well. And I can see why it's a very appealing board game. It's nice to have it on iOS because it manages like a lot of the busy work.
Finicky stuff, yeah.
But I think almost the physical busy work might be part of the appeal because of the way that the physical board game is set up. Let me see if I can pull up a video of the physical board game, because you'll probably see immediately why this is appealing, because it's set up on this really cool wooden potion rack. And the marbles sort of slide down. All right, here we go. This is from Watch It Played, which is a great board game channel. And this is what it looks like. It's all in like this really awesome chest. And you put marbles in the top. And as you take a marble out, everything rolls down. So I think the physicality aspect of it may very well be one of the cool bits of the actual game itself. It may very well add to the experience. Because it's cool to watch the thing slide down and stuff like that. So the iOS version's great. It's really good. You can play against AI and there's missions and you can play online or you can do hot seat play as well. But I think the physical version is probably quite appealing too. So I ordered that as well. So yeah, really, really awesome game. A lot of fun.
That's super neat. I love how it actually is like, it very much resembles the digital version in the fact that like, yeah, you have marbles. That's cool. I think that's pretty nice.
It looks like it's probably like once you start playing it, it's pretty simple too?
By principle, it is, yeah. Really, what you can do every turn is you take a marble. That's your basic turn action. You can also, I believe it is limited per game, you can ask for help, which means you lose 2 points, but you get to take another marble. But that marble will not cause an explosion. So you've got to figure out, okay, what order do I do these actions in? Because you can use your potions as well to cause things to happen. You can use as many potions as you want every turn, but you can only use each potion once per game. But they generally don't cause explosions either. So in order to get the maximum number of the right ingredients, or deny ingredients to your opponent, because of course you know what they're trying to make, so you can deny them colors as well, you need to do things in the right order. It's procedural in that respect. If you do things in the wrong order, then you end up with a suboptimal result. But that's like almost every board game and card game and stuff like that. But yeah, I enjoyed the hell out of it, and it's good. I do like playing it single player because you don't have to wait for the other guys to think about what they're doing. You could spend a lot of time looking. It's like, well, but if I do this, I think that could slow the game down a little bit. But playing against AI, of course, they never wait, so that's great fun. So yeah, that's a worthwhile pickup on iOS. It's a nice setup. I don't know if there's a PC version yet. They might port it, but yeah, Potion Explosion, pretty great. Fan of that one.
I finally finished Sherlock Holmes and the Devil's Daughter.
Yeah.
Can I just point out, one, I was forced to watch you.
I know.
Wait, what do you mean forced to watch her exactly?
One day, Layla was like, "Hey, I'm gonna watch a stream." I was like, "Okay." And it was Dodger, and she just cranked the volume up so loud that literally nothing could drown it out. So I gave up and lost the will to fight back and watched. Here's what I'll say though. Boy, are you just a delight. Like, there are some moments where I truly understand why I get messages that are like, "You suck, you're so bad at games." Like, I understand that now, because when you're not in the heart of it playing, there was a puzzle you were at where I was like, "Just turn to the fucking right." Oh my god.
I know. Yeah, you like started texting me being like, "I love you, but holy fuck, can I please just show you how to do this puzzle?" And I was like, "Jesse, you are literally Twitch chat, but you're able to text me. Like, please don't do this to me."
So I had to be like, "But I love you though. But I love you. But I love you." but I besides that, I kind of get why people like watching you, you silly goose. You're super fun. But I watched you play that shit and was like, yo, that game's fucking cool. I might actually have to give it a try, even though I know how all the end puzzles work.
Okay, so like my huge problem with that game, because it is definitely the cleanest Sherlock Holmes game that Frogwares has made, like by far. For some reason, Sherlock Holmes looks younger and younger and younger in each of their games. Whatever, I'm not gonna question it. He's like a Benjamin Button. But the thing that bothers me the most about that game, and I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything by saying this, is that there are multiple times in that game where something like supernatural happens and they never explain how. And I'm like, this is a fucking Sherlock Holmes game. You have to explain why this shit happened. Like, there are so many moments where something happens and then they're just like, well, I guess that's just magic. And I'm like, no, Sherlock Holmes doesn't believe in fucking magic to explain to me why this happened.
Here's all you need to know about this game.
Okay.
In this game, there's a moment where Sherlock's like, I have to figure out what happened at the ancient Aztec temple or whatever it is. And in his mind palace, recreates an ancient Aztec temple and then runs through all the traps, like mini games and shit. And you're like, why would this ever take place in his mind? You were freaking out. It was so funny. It was like, it doesn't make sense. Why would this be happening? Why is this part of this game?
And yeah, this was also, I think, if I remember correctly, this is the first time that they've had a game where it's like, yeah, there are the normal puzzles where it's like you're lock picking or you're figuring out how to get into a chest and all that shit. But then they also every now and then would be like, now we're going to do cover mechanics. Somebody's shooting at you. And you'd be like walking along and hide behind a rock. And then walking along and hide behind a rock. And it would go on for minutes. This wasn't like a short thing. This was like, oh my God, it never ends sort of a thing. And that happened more than once. I was like, why is this a thing? And part of me is like, okay, Frogwares has made so many of these Sherlock Holmes games, right? Like eventually they have to start being like, let's try out something new. I get it. But oof, guys, don't cover mechanics. Don't do that. Don't do these weird mini games that are like pretending this is an action game. It's not. I just
like that and Crimes and Punishments as well. It doesn't sound like it was that extreme, but there were a couple of moments in there too where it's just all of a sudden you're ducking behind cover and shooting like a crossbow and a gun. It's just like, why?
Yeah.
Out of absolutely nowhere. And it does seem like it goes on forever.
Yeah, Crimes and Punishments was another one where they like started to do that sort of stuff, but not nearly as much.
Yeah.
This most recent one was infuriating. And again, there were plenty of things about it that were really fun. It was much more polished. But there were so many times in every single investigation where I was going, why? Really
Can you at least still take him to the wardrobe and play dress up for however long you want? Oh,
I
good.
created an alter ego every time the game would be like, you need to get into costume. I created an alter ego that I would literally always dress up as, named Burt Magnum.
Oh my.
I would go and pretend to be Burt Magnum.
I again, this is another one of those things where you won me over. When you first started, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, Dodger. By the end, I was like, oh, it's Burt Magnum back again.
Oh dear.
I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, especially since you had no choice but to.
Zero choice. But you know what? Stockholm syndrome set in, and it became fine. It became fine.
Good. I'm so glad. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much all that I've played. I haven't played very many new. Oh, I started that what's that game called? Just a Normal Phone. Normal Lost Phone.
Normal Lost Phone. Yes, yeah.
That game is cool. It is a lot of reading. That game is a reading game, which a lot of those, like, you're on a cell phone the entire time games are, because it's like you're going through all of their text messages, all of their emails, like what apps do they have, like finding clues and all of that. It is a ton of reading, but so far I'm enjoying it, but it's slow because again, you have to read everything. Otherwise you're gonna miss something.
Right.
So they start you off with like 30 different text conversations that you can read through. And I was like, damn, okay. Let's do this. But that game is like, what was it, like $14? Something like that. So I'm gonna be curious to see whether or not it's worth $14.
Dude,
it's got really good reviews.
I know you played it, so I'm sure you know how it progresses, but One Shot.
Yes.
That game is super interesting and like incredibly meta and fun, but how long is that game? Because I played through about an hour, and story-wise I was like, oh shit, there's probably a lot more to go, but everyone I've heard says it's like a 2-hour game. Is it a long game?
I think it took me like 3.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, for those who don't know, One Shot is
I
like
have the same feeling.
Yeah. One Shot is a game that is an adventure RPG without combat, I guess is a good way to describe it, where you're solving puzzles and interacting with characters, but
it's another game that's like super meta in weird ways though too.
Yeah, it's a game where you, the player, are God. So like the main character, when the main character talks, like she's like, Jesse, are you there? I'm like, hey, what's up? She's like, I don't know how to solve this. Like, what do I do? And you're like, well, I guess I could help you. And there's literally a moment where I think you use a guide or you can look something up. And she's like, how'd you figure that out? And you can say, I went online and looked this up. Or you can be like, I'm God and I know what I'm doing. That's
one of the things that I really love is you could either be really honest, like I'm playing a video game right now, or you could be like, I am God and I created this world.
Yeah, it's such an interesting game. Like it's a game where I'm convinced, like I haven't beaten it yet, but I have like I know where this game's headed kind of moment, but I probably don't. But it's like a game where the fact that you're playing a game, but also the game interacts with you, the player, and is like, hey, you know, I bet there's an answer to this somewhere on your computer now. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
I like shit like that. I think it's very, very creative the way they did this game. I love, look, indie developers, keep on being creative. Everyone loves a 2D platformer, but man, if you can make it a little bit more interesting, that would
I don't think everyone does love a 2D platformer, especially not now.
Everyone in the world loves the 2D platform.
I was being sarcastic.
They
It's-
made 3D platformers. Could you imagine 3D platformers?
Man, yeah, what an
Well,
amazing
seriousness?
idea.
I
Yeah,
actually
where
would
did
like
they all
those
go?
to come back.
Yeah, well,
And not knack. but,
Ukulele's gone gold, so I guess we'll see how that one goes. Hopefully that one goes well. I played a little bit of Neo. Little bit, not much. I've been watching probably more than I've played it so far. I watched JP stream quite a lot of it.
Yeah, I've watched a decent number of people play it.
It is. I mean, so far I think it's pretty good from what I can tell. It seems like a bit. It's a very Soulsborne-esque game. You know, it's in the vein of Dark Souls. A little quicker.
Soulsborne. Oh my god.
So that's the
Very
thing. We're calling them.
Soulsborne.
So yeah, Soulsborne's been a thing for a while. Come on. Give me a bit of a
if
break on
there's a
that.
person born in the next 20 years named Jebediah Soulsborne, I'll be so disappointed.
Oh dear.
Oh, Jebediah Soulsborne runs the mansion down the road. Haunted shit. Oh, that's a movie. Make it happen.
It's so far it seems fine. It seems a little faster than most of the Souls games. The weapons don't seem to have quite as much heft, although maybe I just haven't got one heavy enough yet. A lot of them seem a little bit quicker than they would be with the Dark Souls equivalent of it. There seems to be a little bit less reliance on heavy stat management and things like that. If there is a weight system, I haven't found it yet. I certainly haven't, it hasn't said, oh, you're carrying too much, so your stamina's draining or whatever. Maybe it's in the game, maybe it's not. They seem to have kept most of the things which people enjoy from the Souls games. A lot of, the big levels, big exploration, gearing up and all that kind of thing. The combat, while it doesn't maybe weigh as much as the Souls games, is very, very dodge focused. Very much you get hit a couple of times, you can very easily die. Regular mobs can kill you real quick. So you got to watch out for that. But I like the theme. The idea, it's actually based on a real historical figure. A lot of people's like, oh, he's like, he looks like the Witcher guy. It's like, no, it's based on someone called the Western Samurai. What was his name? I'm looking at
the Western Samurai.
It was not
Tom
Geralt.
Cruise, the Western Samurai.
No, not the
he
last
was the
samurai.
Last samurai.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go fix your crackle, damn it. He was called William Adams.
Fix your crackle.
Fix your crackle.
Damn girl, fix your crackle.
That's gonna
hashtag right now.
Hashtag fix
Right
your
now,
crackle.
that's a hashtag.
It's gonna be fix yo crackle.
Hashtag
Fix your
fix
crackle.
your-
So that's like bordering on racist. Sounds racist, but isn't racist. That kind of thing. So this definitely sounds it though. The Western Samurai. I went by the name of oh god, what was the name of it? William. He was William something. William Adams. Yes, William Adams in the 1500s and the early 1600s. The 16th century. He was a real dude. Obviously, this is a very, very embellished version of him because I'm pretty sure there wasn't elite ninja powers and fucking wizard magic or whatever.
You weren't there. You weren't there.
I don't know.
You weren't there. You don't know.
You start off in the Tower of London for some reason, which it is in itself really cool because the first set of gear you get is Tower of London's guard uniform, which includes a cool hat, and I thought that was kind of neat. But yeah, it's a very sort of fictionalized version of the 1600s, and you are the Western Samurai, who again was a real dude. Go look him up. I mean, it seems fine so far. It's nice. I mean, again, runs at 60. It's not stable at 60. There are some areas where it dips a little bit, but it seems tight. It's pretty fun to play. It's by the fellows at Team Ninja, so it's interesting to see them branching out a little bit. Obviously, they made the Ninja Gaiden games, which are very good. Doesn't feel like Ninja Gaiden. Definitely feels a lot more deliberate than Ninja Gaiden. Less jumping around, flipping around the place. Being a ninja, more deliberate
Onimusha,
combat.
perhaps?
Maybe a little bit Onimusha, if you were to go back that far. They weren't the ones that made Onimusha. That was Capcom, wasn't it? But it is a little Onimusha. Yes, it's a Onimusha crossed with Dark Souls. Good way to describe it. So far. Seems pretty good so far. I have enjoyed what I've played of it up to this point, but I have not played a huge amount of it yet. So I'll see what's going on with that later. What I have played an unhealthy amount of, at least in the time that it took to come out on PC, is WWE 2K17. Oh, God. Also known as mostly a creation engine game and less of an actual video game, which, to be fair, has been the way for a lot of WWE games for a while. For some reason, it takes them like 4 months to get them to PC. For whatever reason, I don't know why that is. It's been out on PlayStation and Xbox since last year, but I waited for it to come on PC, because, hey, I'd like to make videos of it, like to stream it, and loading times are usually a big factor in those games, especially when you do the whole customize your wrestler kind of thing. It takes ages to load assets sometimes. On PC, obviously, that's a bit quicker. Those games are still janky as fuck. Just horrendously janky. I'm sure I can pull up some great moments of bug reels and glitches that just, yeah. WWE 2K17 is a broken mess by Skyroll. That sounds like a good one to go for. Yeah, we can show you that. Some of the animations are just, they're fucked. There's a lot of broken shit in that game. Let me just put it that way. But hilariously broken stuff. It's almost like a lot of the Skyrim glitches, like, you know, backflipping flying horse, that kind of thing. They're so dumb and so badly broken that they're funny. And the way that the physics interaction does or doesn't work in that game is just hilarious. So I'm sure everyone who's played it has had their weird moments of stuff going to hell or whatever. But those games are strange because I think for the most part, they're just power fantasies or, you know, fantasies for people that like wrestling and are more interested in creating your own wrestler, create your own title, create your own arena, create your own entrance, and you can do all of that stuff. And it's the creation engine which is probably the most interesting part of it. The actual wrestling, maybe not so much. It's quite slow, it's fairly clunky, like it has been in a lot of the 3D games that haven't gone down the super arcadey route. The ones that did go down the arcadey route, probably the better ones. WWE All-Stars, very, very good game, because it went full-on crazy fighting game kind of thing. But it's still enjoyable because of all that customization and being able to create your own championships and create your own wrestlers, and we could have us all feud over a imaginary co-optional title or something, which I'll probably do at some point. But I spent hours and hours and hours just creating someone that looked like me and making their own entrance and all that kind of shit. And yeah, that's where those games are fun. That's why people play those games. Not for the quality of the wrestling. Not for the quality of the fighting. No. Because they don't have that.
This glitchy video that you've been showing is so
great.
There's so much more of that as well. There's like a ton of like weird teleportation shit, like someone jumping 50 feet across the arena because like, hey, yeah, it said you could jump through the table, but the table's actually all the way over there. We're just going to teleport you there or whatever. The way that physics interactions just don't work half the time. They're so broken. Like, those games are so very, very broken. But I can see why people enjoy them, and it's the same reason that I enjoy it, because it's that fantasy aspect of it. Just being able to make so much stuff in them. The amount of customization for like the facial features and shit is unreal. It's ridiculous what you can do with it.
Go ahead and mash up WWE and The Sims and just get it over with. Because,
pretty much is that, yeah. Absolutely. I think that there's a cross appeal there. There's definitely a cross appeal. Making yourself and then throwing you into a wrestling match with people, with people that you know, I think is pretty funny.
Yeah, if any game lets me make a Duke Nukem alike and put it in bizarre situations, then I will do that. I remember
you can do that.
Soul Calibur and Mortal Kombat.
Oh yeah, I love creating a fighter in those. Yeah, those are great.
Pretty much every E3. Am I roboting?
No, you're fine now.
Nope.
For the time being.
Pretty much every E3 when they showcase like, we've made a new FIFA game, and this time the faces actually look for reals.
They never do.
But they look so, like, the amount of effort that they put into the faces compared to games that are trying to make like really good story games. I'm just like, fuck, can we not all just share technology? Because fix their faces over there, please, because the FIFA faces look better.
Oh man, they're trying to get they have a feature which lets you take a picture of your face and then implant it on it. That never works well. That always looks horrific.
The one time I've seen that work is like NHL 2001 on the PC had this.
All right.
And because it was so low res and it was a flat texture, I was like, yeah, that's me, because it was literally just a picture. There was no 3D. That was convincing at 640 by 480 resolution.
Indeed. These days at HD, maybe not so much.
The new NBA game. I remember when that first came out, all of the boys were trying desperately to get it to like take a picture of their face and
it would
put
never
it on
work,
and it would crash over and over and over again. I came up to the office and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to try. And they were like, okay, but it's going to take you forever. Took one picture, immediately uploaded, and just created like a character that looked exactly like dude me. I was like, great, there we go. All right.
Some
cool.
people just
Bye,
have the right
guys.
face for that. Some people have the right
works.
face, and then sometimes it just is horrific. Their upload system is so jank as well. Like, I think it's probably because of consoles and the way that they had to set it up for that. You have to, like, I think the process on PC anyway is you have to take your photo, but you have to generate a token key from the game, then go to a specific website, enter that token key, and then you can upload, and I think you can do it via phone app as well. Then you have to re-download that asset from the website into the game, instead of just putting it in the game. Like, you've got to jump through a lot of hoops to the point where I'm like, you know what, fuck this. It won't work anyway, I know that. But you can import your own logos and stuff like that. There is a limited number you have to share with the community and stuff like that to get more slots. It's often easier just to get mods for the PC, but I guess at least it's there. You know, it just could be a much better system. But yeah, I might mess around a little bit more with the universe mode and just populate it with YouTubers and have brawls and Royal Rumbles with them or something like that.
Perfect.
Spend a bunch of time on intro videos that no one will ever watch. That kind of thing, you know? There's a definite Sims aspect to that, though. Absolutely. Transplanting a avatar of yourself into some weird world and doing crazy shit is a fun fantasy.
Yeah.
It also sounds like there's a parallel too with the latest WWE and the latest Sims, whereas all crazy customization, and then you get to the gameplay and you're like, well, whatever.
yes.
Yeah.
Is it like Sims 4 customization? Amazing. And it's like, this actually seems like 3 steps back from previous games, and it does, because it is.
Yep.
No doubt about that. Anything else anyone else play this week? There's a couple of brief mentions I'd like to give to, there's one mobile game in particular that was quite a bit of fun that's worth trying. I think it's called Viking and Archer's Journey, or Vikings and Archer's Journey. It's a side-scrolling runner, basically. Nice art style. You play a Viking with a bow. You run, and you drag the left side of the screen to knock an arrow and aim it, and the right side of the screen you tap to jump. Nice and simple. But a lot of fun, and you die instantly if you hit any obstacle, obviously. You could level up and get new stuff and unlock new archers. But it's, when you pull it off and when you do it right, particularly when you pull off some really awesome trick shots, like you get points for doing reverse shots and shots in the head and aerial shots and all that kind of thing, and there's power-ups you can pick up along the way. Very satisfying to play for a couple minutes at a time. Reminded me a lot of Alto's Adventure, which is that cool llama surfboarding game that's on iOS, which is also really good. Llama surfboarding. What a genre. Snowboarding, not surfboarding. Yeah. Llama surfboarding, entirely different genre. Not many good games in that one. Snowboarding, on the other hand, plenty. Yeah,
well,
so...
Whatever happened to that game, Steep? Didn't that come out?
It came out.
There were a couple people I heard that got it, and then whatever. I don't know. I always find those interesting, but...
I think it held people's attention about as long as we expected it to. Unfortunately,
I also think it's aimed at like a different market, really, and I don't know if they marketed it very well to the demographic that they should have. Hard to say, really, but from what I heard, what it was trying to do, it did pretty well. It gave you that sort of extreme sports experience, if that's what you were looking for, with the whole pseudo open world thing going on. Let you do different things like the wingsuiting and the skiing and the snowboarding. But I mean, I don't think most of us really were interested in it because we're not really into those sort of sports games.
Yeah, once I heard that you couldn't get eaten by a Yeti, then I was completely...
Where's the fun in that? Ski free will remain the best.
I was super into like all of the SSX games.
Mm-hmm.
So these, I don't know, an extreme sports game where nothing is ridiculous it felt boring to me.
Man.
That's silly, but like
SSX Tricky, SSX Blur on the Wii was fucking awesome. I enjoyed that a lot.
If they added in, and maybe they have, again, it's not like I've kept my ear to the ground for Steep news, but if they added in a bunch of like ridiculous outfits and things that you could wear.
Or just like the ability to set yourself on fire, maybe?
Sure.
That would be cool.
I mean, we're not on the same wavelength, but yeah.
I mean, that's where I go with that. If you talk, flamboyant outfits, I think flame, and then you
crazy shit.
Right.
I've been playing Steep Slope Sliders, I think, on the Sega Saturn, and there was an unlockable UFO and alien and shit like that, and
yeah, that's the kind of
there was a low gravity half pipe, that was all really, really fun. But I mean, Steep obviously was going for a bit more realism. Maybe there's just a giant market of people playing that game that I just never come in contact with. It's entirely possible.
It was $60. I mean, and that was the thing for me. I'm like, I just don't see how that could possibly be worth it for the kind of, I don't know, it seemed pretty limited for that much.
It did. I mean, the thing is, I have so little experience with those kind of games, I can't really comment. I mean, all I know is it was not aimed at me, it was not marketed at me, I didn't have any interest in playing it. The current Steam numbers of that game are not good, although it is a Uplay game, so I don't know, maybe there's a secret cabal of Uplay-only guys that are playing it, but right now there's about 200 people playing it, which for a new IP a month after launch is not very good. That's worse than Battleborn, and that's actually way worse than Battleborn. Jesus, that's not a watermark you want to be under, I don't think. You'll drown. Outside of that, I played a little bit. I'll just briefly cover these. It's a double whammy of not very good Warhammer 40,000 games. There's one called Sanctus Reach that got released by Slytherin that is a basic turn-based strategy game with animations that look like they could have been out in 1995. I mean, frankly, Warhammer 40,000 Final Liberation, which was literally from the 90s, is better animated and has better sound assets than this game does. It got boring within about 10 minutes. And the Horus Heresy Battle for Talan, which came out yesterday, which is a mechanized warfare, hex-based, turn-based Warhammer strategy game, which is available on mobile and on PC, and is incredibly basic, is what it is. Again, with shitty sound assets, and some of the weirdest sounding music you have ever heard. If you go and look for the trailer for this game, it's called Battle of Talan, you are going to hear, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's some strange evolution of dubstep that I'm not familiar with. Let me just put, it sounds like music the Terminator would listen to.
So hashtag fix your crackle.
Yeah, fix your crackle. It's so bizarre. I wonder maybe if it's thematic, but I always imagined in 40k games, big epic battle themes would make sense. In this, it's a lot of bass dropping and stuff like that. It's bizarre. But the game's just flat out not enjoyable. It's not fun. It's a really basic hex-based move your tank, shoot the tank, chance to hit kind of thing. And the missions are unfair. Most of the time they have instant failure states, like lose 50% of your tanks and you instantly lose and have to start again. And a lot of that is down to luck, because it's entirely possible you lose 3 or 4 tanks just because this guy got a lucky hit or whatever. It's like, this is not interesting. Most of the tactics seem to be get behind the enemy tank and then you do more damage, because fucking course you do, and that's about it. It's
the music in this trailer. What the shit is this music?
I gotta play it. I've gotta play you this trailer before we go to the break.
God.
You must experience the wow. I can only describe it as, let's just say, a very angry cat was thrown in the washing machine. This cat also happens to be a cyborg. This is the noise it would make. That is the closest I can get. I know a lot of review is done through analogy and comparison. That's the best I can do. I'm sorry. You must just experience this for yourself. So
it reminds me
break,
of every time in like a 90s movie when they showed the distant future, this is the music people would listen to.
Yes.
Like non-music. Like weird, like
yes.
Like what?
It's like, wow, Nine Inch Nails really lost his way at some point. And okay, I'm going to play the trailer for you just before we go to the break. You have to experience the angry cyborg cat in a washing machine soundtrack of this game. We'll be right back with the news, folks, here on the Co-optional Podcast. You will suffer for the next minute and 7 seconds, as I did. This song is actually in the game, by the way, and on loop, and it's horrendous. Okay, experience the wonder. I want all you all need to listen to this at the same time. Load this trailer up. I'm going to link it to you. We're going to have facial reactions as we play this trailer. I need you all to suffer as I did. I'm going to send this to you.
Did.
Suffer like G did.
Okay.
All right, I've sent the trailer through. All right, we ready to play? Battle of Talan trailer? Okay, here we go. All right, I think the sound is set up. Here we go. I hope this works.
Count us in.
Okay. Oh, I already started. We're like 6 or 7, 8 seconds in. Go. It's sounding fine so far. It's just like, all right, strings. Okay, synthesized strings, fine. Do. This is fine. This is okay. There's a chainsaw. Then there's sort of, I know. Now, what is happening? Terminator, yeah. It's like we're hitting a plastic washing basin. And now, There's the angry cyborg cat. What the fuck is this? This is not just trailer music. This is literally in the game.
Yes, good.
Angry cyborg cat. Now we get very worried strings. It's like, run from the cyborg cat. Flee! Oh god, it's here.
It's very sassy cyborg cat. Like,
wow. Jesus. Maybe don't play that. We're going to a break. When we come back, we can bring in the news. Don't go anywhere. Jesus Christ.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is TotalBiscuit. StarCraft 2 can be pretty rough sometimes. It's skillful and demanding. It stretches even professional players to their absolute limits. Bearing that in mind, the last thing you need is somebody yelling in your ear and reminding you of all your mistakes.
Your SCVs can't mine when they're dead.
That's why I created the TotalBiscuit Announcer Pack for StarCraft 2. Enjoy positive reinforcement.
You're supply blocked. Might as well GG now.
Sincere compliments.
What you lack in minerals, you make up for in charm.
And calm, relaxing notifications.
Your base is under attack. We're all gonna die.
Are you a Zerg player? Let me tell you how beautiful you are.
Metamorphosis is a beautiful thing. Oh god, it's monstrous!
All this and much, much more from the man who brought you the best play-by-play event in history.
Building a supply depot right here. This could be the tactical crucial move of this entire game. It's all about 20%, 25%, and here we go.
The TotalBiscuit Announcer Pack. Available to buy now in-game on the collection page.
Resume the real-time strategy-ing.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Co-Optional Podcast. We'll dive right into the news, shall we? There's actually things to talk about this week, as rare as that is.
Oh my gosh.
Incredible! The first piece of news, which might sound exciting to some people, it sure as hell is not to us. E3. E3 is obviously on the way, as it is every year, that giant leviathan of a show, and it is, for the first time, open to the public. Now, you might tell me, it's been open to the public before. Was E3 for all or E for all? That wasn't the same show. Not the same show. The proper, official, actual E3 event has never technically...
E3.
Yes, it's never been technically open to the public. But now, this year, it will be. You'll be able to... I think it's a $250 price for the pass to get in. And that does not, by the way, guarantee you entry into the press conferences... or the backstage demos, or anything. Gives you access to the floor, which the LA Convention Center, which I believe is like 3 giant halls, all kind of connected by a very, very long corridor, for all intents and purposes. Oh god. Let me put it this way. My desire to attend E3 is usually not that high to begin with. It's definitely not high now. I've experienced Gamescom. Let me put it that way. Yeah. I know how busy that gets. And this could very well get even worse than that. E3 was already a pain in the arse to get around and to actually get any work done in. It's going to get a whole lot worse now.
I mean, we've all been pretty open. I don't know about Clint, but the three of us have all been pretty open about the fact that we don't enjoy E3.
No, I'm right up there. I did it once. That was enough. That's enough.
I don't know of anybody anyone that's been around in the industry for more than a year. I don't know of anyone that's been around for more than a year that enjoys E3. Like, E3 sounds very exciting, especially when you first get into the industry, if you happen to get credentials to get involved. And I mean, I say industry, people who work at GameStop got credentials. It's not actually that hard to get into.
E3 so easily. I knew a friend of mine, he got in because he had a blog spot.
Yeah.
And it didn't even have, he just typed in the numbers. Do you have 50,000 views?
Account? I'd like a media pass.
Yeah, there were many ways to get access to it. It was weird because E3 was one of the slowest to adapt to the whole YouTube and Twitch change thing. But if you had a blog, get on in, no problem. Basically, it's like, do you have a website? No. Well, I have like 6 million subscribers on YouTube. Yeah, but do you have a website though? That was them for ages. They've sort of resolved that now. They obviously realize where the influence is. The thing is that like opening it up to the public isn't really an adaptation to that, because honestly, like, if you were a Twitch streamer or YouTuber, especially in the last couple of years, you could get into E3 without a problem. Like, they were not locking out people like Lyric, for God's sake. It's like, oh yeah, that guy who can shift like 100,000 copies of a game just by streaming it a bunch, yeah, we're totally not going to let him in. Like, yeah, everyone could get in fairly easily. But opening up to the public, it was a giant clusterfuck to begin with. It's going to get so very much worse as a result. And I'm going to say, like, E3 is not a consumer-oriented show. If you're going there expecting to enjoy yourself and checking out a ton of brand new stuff, this is not the show to go to do that.
Go to a PAX, man.
Go to a PAX. That's what PAX is for. Like, E3 may have a few more bigger games. Yeah, true, you know. But honestly, like, over the last few years, big companies have been pulling out of E3. I wonder if this change is going to make some of them come back or even drive away even more. It might.
I mean, the queue times are already crazy.
Yeah,
they're going to be
some
insane.
of the PAXs are like some of the bigger conventions at this point are just like, boy, do I hate going to PAX West or PAX Prime. I think that is a clusterfuck, and I hate going to it.
But I love Seattle.
Seattle's fun place.
That's what makes it so hard.
Yes.
Seattle's great, but PAX is.
It's very. PAX is, especially PAX Prime, is packed prime. Like, East has a bigger venue that's more spread out in a more logical way. This is just, it's stacked on top. It's a bunch of far too small halls stacked on top of each other that they frankly need to find another venue for. And everything's connected by a central elevator, which consistently breaks and you have to queue to even get on in the first place. It is a real pain.
Yeah, and E3... for everything and I will say there's a lot of things that I enjoy about E3, but none of it ever outweighs the like nonsense of E3. Like actually I mean, there's already a ton of people there, and unless you have a behind the scenes access thing, it's already a giant wait around for nothing fest. Opening it up to the public, here's what I'll say. Real talk is if you desperately want to go and you have $250 to blow, go enjoy it for what it is, but you'll realize very quickly that you just wasted $250.
It's no picnic.
You'll be like, why did I spend money? If you need the experience of being like, I want to see what the industry is actually like, go. You will see. You will definitely see.
You will see the nonsense. You'll see the smoke and mirrors. E3 is probably the most pretentious of gaming events. It always has been. And it's very much, we are making a huge deal out of this. And it's never, most of the time anyway, every now and again you have something like the Sony conference last year, which I felt was, for a marketing event, genuinely pretty damn respectful. But for the most part, it's an example of like the engorged, very decadent and overly commercialized nature of the industry. And it's not a very honest event. It never has been, You want to go speak to a developer, go to PAX. The developer's probably there with his game, especially if he's an indie guy. He'll show you the game. He'll be completely upfront with you about it. That's a great experience. E3, no. It's a lot of slick marketing. It's a lot of very exclusionary marketing and letting people in. I still recall that time, Perfect World, where they threw my business card in the trash. Big mistake. Not a very good idea, that. It's it's again, it's people, a lot of self-important people.
That's exactly what it is. It's if you ever want this is what I would say. If you ever want a real look at what the industry really is, at its core, E3 is the most vivid window into that is your 60.
A bunch of self-important people doing nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. A bunch of self-important people doing nothing while the people that actually make the games industry go are back in the studio working and making the next game. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend going unless they're gonna vastly change the way that they present themselves and redo the show. There's no point. And like I said, if you were going there assuming that you get into the big press conferences, you won't. All those seats are already gone. They give them out to media, they give them out to influencers, they give them out to people who are paid to cheer for them, they give them out to executives. They're only going to give them you're only getting a seat in those if you can do something or you can, be a good little useful idiot and cheer at everything they say. And most of the time, they just hire people for that because they're more reliable. They don't want another, I remember the Battlefield incident a couple of years ago where the sound didn't play. There's someone in the front row. It was a streamer, wasn't it, who yelled, amazing! In just the silence. It's like, they don't want that. They don't want any more of that.
Like the one where the girl in the front row this year who was just like, yeah! The entire time. I don't remember what game that was. Holy shit.
That was also pretty hilarious. I was like, who the fuck is that girl? She is so jazzed.
She is very excited.
So
One
would you
other
if you're
thing,
being.
too, I've heard a lot of people bring up is like, well, I want to meet my favorite YouTubers, my favorite journalists, my favorite. We're going to be working. People are going to be working. So, I mean,
Not the way to go. No, that's the last place that you go to meet those people. Like
if you want to annoy
PAX.
your favorite personalities, that's a good place to do it. But
Yes.
please don't try to stop, people in the hall.
Also,
it doesn't work.
Most people who are there on business stuff are not on the show floor at all. Like,
Yeah.
they're up in a
there's a
private room or
ton-
doing something.
There's a ton of backstage
they're
rooms.
schmoozing in back rooms. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
well, I mean,
Everyone's
that's where
there
the work
like,
gets done.
If
you-
brand deals.
Well, that and if you have an appointment, generally speaking, you don't have an appointment at their booth. Or you have an appointment in
all
a
it is.
backstage room, and that's where you get your footage, and that's where the work gets done. You don't do it on the floor usually because it's too fucking loud to do anything on the floor. It's useless.
Also, it's not any good for any of like us. People are like, "Oh, you guys go and you have fun." No, it's
No, we
like
don't.
schmoozing, and any YouTuber you meet, you're already like, "You got my card? You want my like? Let's do a deal together." You're like, "Yes, okay,
never do.
sure. We'll never talk again after this." Like, it's really sad that we're like, "Why are we doing
Honestly,
this?
like
Why are we doing this?"
with other YouTubers or streamers, it's a lot easier for me to just follow them on Twitter.
Well, of course, yeah.
And then I'll see them on my
Yes.
feed and be like, "Oh yeah, I met that person." If I have your business card, it's lost in a world of other business cards that I'll never
I'm trying
look
to
at
think if
again.
there's been a single guest on this show that I've ever got here via their business card, and I'm fairly sure the answer is no. We just messaged them on Twitter or emailed them or sent them a message of usually like, "Hey, you want to be on the show?" I'm like, "Yeah, done." It's like usually about 8 hours before the show goes live. But yeah, it's I say unless they're vastly redesigning E3, you don't want to go to E3. Trust me, we've been there, we've done it. It's not the magical place that it sounds. Sit at home and watch the streams. Why would you even want to be at the press conference? You can watch the stream, or you can watch somebody rip the shit out of the stream via a restream. Do that instead. It's a lot more fun.
I think the biggest benefit for conventions in general is like getting to meet other members of the community, right? Or getting to meet friends that you met online and things like
Absolutely.
connecting with people. In E3 is just not a good place to do that.
No, it's not.
There's way too many good, awesome conventions nowadays. I mean, I was just at the Portland Retro Gaming Expo recently, and I was surprised how popular that has gotten even. And, that was up there with PAX for me as far as like something that I actually enjoyed, but yet it still wasn't even nearly as busy as PAX, even though it was 30,000 people. But I mean, that's great. Those kind of meetups are awesome. And
Oh my God.
typically you got people going there on purpose to meet with people as opposed to like, trying to get work done.
I used to go to PDX LAN every year, and apparently that's gotten out of control too. Like it's just too much.
Well, I will say about E3, I know exactly who would enjoy E3. If you go to Disneyland or Disney World, not for the rides, but to experience the like sights and sounds, you'll fucking love E3. Because like if you go there, the Zelda area this past E3 was incredible. Like it was, you were in the world and they had like moving things. If you stepped on certain things, parts of the set would move and like shit would happen. Mind you, you couldn't even get a chance to play the game if you wanted to. But like getting into the area, walls would open and you get like cool sound effects and like movies and stuff. It was a crazy experience.
Tons of gimmicks. The gimmicks are fun.
Yeah. If you love gimmicks, if you're the person who's like, I don't really like Disney World, but I like, going there, then this is your shit. You will love this. If you don't go on
Do you like
rides,
lines
but you
longer
like the
than Disney
experience,
World? Because we got them. E3's got them. And there ain't no fast pass, trust me.
You'll love it.
Ironically, Disney left E3, so that's a thing.
That they did. Yeah, quite a few companies have.
No longer even there.
Don't really blame them. Costs a lot of money. You often get lost in the shuffle. Why would you want to be on the floor with all of your competition, spending a ton of money to be there? I don't.
Was
Well, you can do your own
Nintendo the
thing.
first ones who did that?
Yeah, although I think they
five?
came back, didn't they? They've definitely dropped out multiple times, I think, and various other publishers have as well. So I don't know if E3. I mean, E3's relevance has been in question for years at this point. Considering how easy it is to directly get your information to the consumers that want it, there's really not a huge amount of necessity to be at E3 anymore. You can just market directly to the people who are going to buy your shit, rather than having to spend a ton of money to potentially market to people that won't. All right, let's move on then. So, I suppose justice is kind of served as a thing for this. YouTuber avoids prison is the as part of the title for this. So you might be aware there are several ongoing lawsuits involving certain YouTubers who are dishonest crooks, and I use that term very liberally and accurately, and that is my opinion, not necessarily representing those in the rest of the cast, although they may agree with me anyway.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
No, I'm with you.
You're
ripping off fans? You're a scumbag.
Who ran digital gambling sites aimed at children, and usually, either didn't have a license for it, or didn't properly disclose that they owned the website, or had direct access to the back end of the website, or gambled on the website despite knowing what the odds were and being able to manipulate them. All of these very, 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 very illegal things, basically. Well, the UK got its act together, and there were charges filed by the UK Gambling Commission versus a fellow called Craig Douglas, aka Nepenthes. I don't know who this guy is because apparently he's part of the FIFA community. I don't follow that, but they're a big deal. They make a lot of money. Apparently not enough, though, because they also felt the need to set up a digital gambling site using the currency that the game has involved in some way. The UK Gambling Commission has now commented on the case. They changed the plea, I believe, from not guilty to guilty. So they initially said we totes didn't do this, and then said, okay, maybe we did. The comment from the Gambling Commission is as follows. This was one of the most serious cases that has been investigated and prosecuted by the Commission. Its gravity is reflected in the significant financial penalties imposed by the judge. The defendants knew that the site was used by children and that their conduct was illegal, but they turned a blind eye in order to achieve substantial profit. The effect on children of online gambling was rightly described by the court as horrific and serious. All websites offering gambling facilities in Britain must be licensed. It's the only way in which children and vulnerable people can be protected. This case demonstrates that we will use the full range of our statutory power to investigate and prosecute individuals that try to operate illegally. Yeah.
There's a lot of words in there, and there's a lot of context that goes with everything related to being a YouTuber or celebrity, which is, boy, do you wield an awful lot of power over people who are very susceptible to that power.
Yeah.
You just straight up understand that immediately, because that's how we have stories of, like, this guy ripped off these kids with the lotto thing, or like this guy's like getting pictures of nude 14-year-olds. Like, it's all in the exact
the amount
same,
of fucking time we hear about that is ludicrous. Like, it's like every single week it seems to be a new scandal of some popular YouTuber's like, it's somehow involved in pedophilia in some way. It's like, fucking hell, can we have 1 week where that doesn't happen? Jesus.
And I know people are like, I'm not a role model, and I just play video games. It's
Fuck
like,
that. Yes, you are. You have an audience. You're a role model.
Yourself to be. It's what other people perceive you to be, and then you have to live up to that standard. Like, once you take on this role, you become what other people want you to be, and you got to either deal with that or walk the fuck away. Like, there is no middle ground there. Yeah. You are now on a pedestal for many people, and the minute you abuse that and exploit that, you are a bad person. I do not care about, like, you're a bad person.
Yeah.
Hands down.
You know, it's when I think we took a while to come to that conclusion as well. I think we all started off saying we're not role models either, but realized you can't really escape it. Yeah. You know, especially as your audience gets larger and larger, you can't escape those responsibilities. And the bare minimum you can do is obviously be honest with your audience and not fuck them over. And then you can even make arguments later on. It's like, well, I have an audience and a certain amount of power and influence and reach. Do I have a responsibility to represent certain causes? Do I have a responsibility to express certain views? That's very debatable. Some people avoid that entirely. That's entirely their right to do it. Some people use their platform to reach out. I think we often stay away from that as much as we can, but every now and again, last week in particular, we spent a short portion of the show making a political statement because we felt like we had the responsibility to do that, especially to show support for those that had been directly affected by the shit that went on. And some people got angry about that. They got angry that we expressed that. We gave them the option to skip it. We gave them every option to avoid it. They didn't, and then got mad about it anyway. I don't think I've got much sympathy for that. But so there is no surefire set of responsibilities that you do or do not have in this position with these kind of audiences, but there is certainly a bare minimum standard, which is, I don't know, maybe not illegally market gambling products to kids. That is possibly something that is always wrong in every circumstance.
Yeah, that seems like an obvious, right?
That's one of the things that might be. It's like, don't kill members of your audience. Don't market gambling products to children.
Yeah, you can believe what you want to believe, and you can express your opinions, whatever those opinions are. You can do all sorts of that different levels. The bare minimum is just don't exploit your audience because you have a position of power that you're using in a way that is wrong. Like, it's just fundamentally wrong. Like, you can have, like, we can say an opinion on the show. That's not exploitation. That's like an opinion. That's how we feel about a subject.
You have the right to agree or disagree, completely ignore, skip that segment, whatever you want, but you don't have the right to stop us saying it.
We feel it's our right to, like, we feel that there are members of our audience that we need to say this to. Like, yo, we are on your side, like that kind of thing. Like, there's certain things you have to say, but then there's certain things you just don't have to do. And one of those things you shouldn't do is take people who are so invested in you as a personality,
vulnerable people,
and then exploiting them. That's wrong on like every basic human level. And I understand that at a certain point in your like trajectory through YouTube or for a lot of people, you're young and suddenly you're making a ton of money and it's like, oh my God, I can have a lot of money and be like filthy rich. Like, this has never happened before. And you get caught up in it, or you replace money with women or whatever. Replace it with whatever the thing is that you are obsessed with. Like, oh my God, I can get a lot of that now, and I never had that before. And this fucking up. At some point, though, you have to realize that, like, it comes back to that responsibility thing and what is ethically and morally right. And man,
also legally right. That's
legally as well. Yeah, I was gonna say, because morals, like, everybody has a different code of morals, but like the law.
But yeah, this is the law. You know, the thing with Pro Syndicate, what he did was illegal. There's no question about it. You know, and I have no doubt in my mind. You know, you can clearly read the FTC regulations that he broke, and the other people involved in it, T. Martin and some other dude whose name I think was Josh, someone over there, I can't remember. Somehow he managed to dodge most of the PR flag. And these guys as well. They literally broke the law. They were fined upwards, by the looks of it, or, well, a lot. Let's put it that way. I think £175,000. A lot of money. They did not go to jail over this, but they were fined. That's a good amount. I mean, even for a YouTuber that popular, that is a pretty significant chunk of change. The guy appears to be relatively apologetic about it. He says he's going to explain his side of the story, but frankly, you had the opportunity to do that in court, motherfucker. And the court clearly ruled against you, so I don't think you get to do that.
When people make the I need to explain my side of story video, it's always like, yeah, I mean, I was in a bad place. It's always spin.
Like, and I didn't, I really should have educated.
A guy with his dog, like, it's just a
oh God,
like, stop.
Sad violin in the background.
Yeah, like,
oh God.
Your audience, I guarantee, would respect you more if you came out and said, like, yo, I money blinded my ass. I was blinded by the fact that I can make a quick buck. If you came out and said that, dude, people would.
I'd still think you were crap, but at least respect that you realize that.
Absolutely.
You've got a road to redemption from there. It's when you don't recognize what you're doing wrong. That's the problem. So I'm very glad that the UK came down on these fuckers. And honestly, I mean, this is going to open up more discussion about the nature of online gambling. There's been a lot of discussion, certainly over the past year, as to what constitutes gambling, the introduction of gambling-like mechanics, and where's the line drawn? Where's the line drawn between, well, this is an optional cosmetic random microtransaction, and this is actual gambling? Where I think...
Especially now that a lot of casinos are specifically hiring game developers and big game companies to get younger and younger audiences into real casinos using real games like, a Call of Duty, whatever machine where you actually play a Call of Duty game and get real money back.
I played Plants vs. Zombies cabinet in Vegas last time I went there.
The lines is ridiculous at this point.
Yeah, there's I mean, that's going to get very interesting because Nevada, I believe, quite recently legalized skill-based machine gambling, which prior to that it all had to be random. There couldn't be an element of skill, although there's this weird exception for video poker for some reason. But hey, outside of that though, that's why all the slot machines in Vegas are just push a button and stuff happens. Whereas in Europe, there are skill elements to it because that's legal, especially in the UK. There's like a slot machine in every pub, and they usually have a skill element. But yeah, you're right. They are marketing towards that particular demographic. Gambling isn't necessarily wrong. It's certainly potentially harmful if you take it too far. But obviously, I'd say it's a free country, but it's not when it comes to gambling, not in the slightest. But this, this is clearly illegal, and marketing gambling to children is obviously terrible. But it's going to be interesting to see if the law starts to come down against other things, like, we were talking about gacha mechanics earlier. And, of course, Japan is full of pachinko parlors whereby you totes don't win money, but the toy that you get, you inexplicably is worth a lot of money if you go to that guy right next to the pachinko parlor that's curiously buying all of those. There's a lot of stuff like that. Those mechanics are integrated into games. Where's the line drawn? When it's gambling, when it's not? In my opinion, the line is crossed when something has real-world value that can be readily exchanged for real currency. And I think in the case of CSGO, that is, with skins, there's a gambling aspect to that. Even if you don't count the fact that you can cash them out through third-party unofficial websites, which you're technically not supposed to do, but totes can, you can still sell stuff for Steam currency, which buys real games. In the sense of buying games, it's the same as having regular money. So I think there's definitely a line crossed there. And since there is an ongoing lawsuit, several in fact, involving Valve, I have a feeling we're going to see some changes over the next couple of years. No doubt.
Valve did. Valve came out and did like a press release talking, not a press release, but like basically mentioned TF2, because now people are trying to set up TF2 ones, and they were like, don't. Like, we're immediately distancing ourselves from this. We don't want anything to do with this. We're shutting down as much as we can, but please, in the meantime, like, don't do it. I don't blame them after everything that's happened.
I mean, I imagine what'll happen is eventually there'll just be regulation applied to it. As usual, the law is way behind the times when it comes to digital goods and anything digital. I feel it's fine, but it should be properly regulated. And the problem with digital gambling, in particular with digital goods, is that it's real easy to access for a kid. Very easy. Whereas it's much harder for a child to go, say, play online poker, especially in the United States, to play online poker for money. And certainly they can't walk into a casino and start betting. They'll be immediately kicked out for that. But gambling with skins, which do have real world value, that's a thing. That is a thing that can happen. I do not expect this area to be left alone forever. And I think this year will probably be a very formative year in what happens with those mechanics and those particular business models going forward. Interesting. Okay, so moving on to something slightly more positive before we do the releases. So this is an intriguing tale, a story, a Little King story. I bring up Little King's story every now and again because every now and again the argument comes up that there was no good games on the Wii. And I said, that's bullshit. There actually were lots of good games in the Wii, and one of the main ones that I bring up is Little King's story, which is this awesome little amalgamation of Pikmin with kind of kingdom management and strategy and all sorts of really cool little elements. Very original, very interesting game that a lot of people ignored because it looked cutesy and kind of had bad music that was just sort of MIDI versions of classical music. It's like you wake up and there's Grieg in the background. Can't remember the name of the song. But it was definitely by Grieg. I know the name of the composer. Yes, there's some Grieg and some Bach and some Beethoven and all that kind of thing. But that game was very interesting. Didn't run very well. They released a version on Vita called New Little King Story. Ran even worse. Very disappointing. Then it comes along to PC, and I thought, finally, manna from heaven, a glorious PC master race will be able to experience this at full 60 frames per no, we fucking weren't, because it was broke as shit on launch. It didn't matter how good a PC you had. You want to try and get 60 in that game? Good luck, you ain't getting it. And that game looked 10 years old because it was. Now, here's the interesting bit. You might be aware of a fellow by the name of Durante, I think is how he pronounces his name. If not, I am going to do that. He's called Durante, and I assume he's sort of like a Spanish fencer. That's what I assume. Okay. That he goes into battle with a rapier and that he's very skilled in the arts of the blade, but is also a dashing individual. I
think I got a 5-star of him the other day in Fire Emblem.
But you do. You got a conquistador's helmet and flared pantaloons. That's how I imagine him. But he was the guy that fixed the terrible port of Dark Souls, the original Dark Souls, when it came out. He made DS Fix. He did it very quickly, too, which made the game run a lot better. It fixed the internal resolution problems, and eventually was developed into a must-have mod for that game. He's done it with a couple of other games as well, and has become something of an authority on PC ports. He's well worth listening to. He'll sometimes publish articles on PC Gamer or on his own blog. He pretty much gets everything right. He knows his shit. Like, listen to this guy. Now, here's the interesting bit. Xseed, who is the publisher of Little King's Story, who don't have a particularly good reputation when it comes to PC with porting, went up to Durante, they approached him and contacted them and said, can you do anything about this port? Because we recognize it's fucked. We don't know what's going on. We're just going to give you the source code. Can you see what you can do with it? Which I have never heard of that happening before. Like, the amount of trust, giving the full source code of a commercial game that, on PC at least, has only recently come out, to a guy who's obviously very experienced, but up to this point he's basically just been a modder in the community. I've never heard of that happening. Maybe it has. But he wrote this amazing blog on Xseed's own website. Again, mind-blowing. Xseed actually allowed him to do that, tear the game to pieces, and explained everything that was wrong with it, and said, oh god, this is crazy. You know, the game was built on a custom engine from the ground up. It was designed to be a one-off product. There was no internal frame rate logic at all. Like, there's bunch of pieces just sort of hodgepodge together. All sorts of problems all over the place. And you know what? Yeah, I can fix a lot of it. And that's exactly what he went and did. And then Xseed relaunched the game on Steam at like half off. And I got to play a little bit of it yesterday. It's much improved. Much better.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's so cool.
It's absolutely incredible. Not only, you've got to read this blog, because not only is it a fascinating look into coding and the problems. We recognize what a bad PC port is. I think a lot of us can spot one, but we don't know why, you know? Whereas this guy knows why. So he provides fascinating insight into it.
What's so impressive is that Xseed posted his, like, comments on their game, and it's literally like, I can't believe that this is made the way it was. Like, he's trashing the game, and they're like,
you could totally say that.
Of our game, and he fixed it. It's incredible.
That's an amazing move. Like, there are very few publishers that will openly admit to that kind of thing. You know, that's a Devolver move. That's the kind of shit that Fork Parker would post on his Twitter or whatever.
It's true. Being like, I fucked up, guys. Look, he says I fucked up.
Yeah. But good on Xseed for doing this. He improved the graphical fidelity of the game. He added a bunch of new effects in, so the game looks a lot better. It runs a lot better. There are certain parts of it which are apparently so broke-ass that he had to put a toggle switch in to lock it back to 30, because there are just some small parts of the game that are so inconsistent and weird that you've just got to lock the frame rate again for it to work properly. Because, again, the game basically has no internal logic at all. It's all over the place. But, like, this, it's much more playable now. And, again, it's a great game. It was always a great game. It's an amazing game. I'd recommend it to people, but it ran so poorly. But now it's so much better. So have a look at it. Trust me on this one. It's a very unique game. Don't be put off by the fact that it looks very childish. It's not. It's actually got a lot of really cool adult humor in it. It's very funny. It's got the awesome kingdom management elements and the kind of Pikmin style stuff and job systems and everything. It's really cool. And I think this is going to go down as a very interesting part of history. This is going to be one of the few examples where a publisher has genuinely made, yo, we fucked up, and then reached out to someone who could fix it, and then allowed that person to be totally honest about everything, explain what he did, explain what was broken, and explain what he was able to do to fix it, and then relaunch the commercial product. That's amazing to me.
I hope he got a lot of money out of that.
I fucking hope he didn't do that for free. They better have paid him.
He's a smart dude. I hope he would do that.
Yeah. I would think so. I imagine he got paid for it. And hey, if this becomes his thing, if he becomes the superhero that comes and fixes broken ports, great. Give him the fucking...
He already has a great name for it. I'm just saying, if Durante can't help us, who can?
Indeed. Help us, Durante! He comes in, there's a little trumpet flourish. I am here to save the day, my lady.
It's like when companies reach out to hackers and are like, can you make it so that our website doesn't suck?
Yeah, it is quite a lot. Hey, you might even be able to come in. Maybe you can come in and fix your Crackle. Yeah, that would be great.
Oh my God. The dream.
Hashtag
Durante, help me.
Durante, we need you now.
There's eventually going to be some weird Durante fanfic. It's like, I've come to fix your port. I was like, there you go, Brazzers. Apparently, so I'm told by Jim Sterling, the master of such things, apparently Brazzers just released their parody of Metal Gear Solid, The Phantom Peen. Yes. Yeah,
I'm not trying with their names anymore.
Come on, Metal Rear Solid, the Phantom Pain. Surprisingly, apparently quite accurate to the game, quite faithful. If you can believe it.
A lot of fire whales. And sneaking around. Pretty good.
Yeah, there's something for everyone in that game. You're looking for a whale, if you know what I mean, you'll find one. You can go read Jim Sterling. In fact, he actually made a video of it. Obviously, he censored literally everything, but his review of it's fucking hilarious. There you go. Brazos Durante, I've come to fix your port.
I love it.
Perfect. I need access to your source code, if you know what I mean. Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, I have no clue what you're talking about.
No, I actually don't know.
At all.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful story.
Mm-hmm.
Christ.
Shall we talk about releases?
We can do that. Absolutely. Let's bring up releases. Thankfully, not too long this week. We're not going to be here for 45 minutes listing off absolute tat. At least that is the hope anyway. All right.
First up,
everyone has a release list
have...
ready to go? Yes, cool. Let's go. Let's go. Yes.
Okay. I'm trying.
Let's go. Oh my God.
First game for February 9th is John Wick Chronicles.
John Wick Chronicles. It's an FPS, which, I mean, it sounds...
virtual reality as well.
Oh, Jesus. All right. There's where it kind of goes wrong. Weirdly enough, it's by Starbreeze. It's by bloody...
Starbreeze?
Well, yeah, I mean, which is Mr. Triple X's studio. He was involved in that to some extent. You remember? Chronicles of Riddick guy.
Mr. Triple X.
Vin Diesel. Yes.
The Darkness games as well.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Side note, Sam and I watched the new Triple X movie, and it is the hottest garbage.
I want to see it. The first one was such hot garbage. I want to see this one. I can't wait.
See it.
I'm so happy. I loved deliberately terrible
John
movies.
Wick Friday.
You can do both.
I mean,
do one after the other.
That's supposed to be legitimately great.
Amazing.
This, on the other hand, has currently mixed reviews. It doesn't look too bad, but I think it's a stupor from what I can tell. It's a standing VR shooter. By the looks of it.
On the other hand, by pre-ordering it, you get to play John Wick, the weapon pack in Payday 2.
Oh, yes, they did a crossover with that, didn't they? Is there a movie that Payday 2 has not done a crossover with now? I don't know. Yeah. All right, that's that. Next
up is called We Are Chicago.
Ah, yes, I heard about this.
I played this at PAX East last year. It is like it's an interesting game. It's basically a like, how do you even describe this? You are a kid in the inner city and you're trying to protect your sister from the fact that life is tough as shit. And it's like an experience simulator. Is that
it's a walking simulator, right? For the most part?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sort of you're dealing with things like bullying and, you know, the life of people living in the South Side, you know, and all that kind of thing. It's an interesting way for games to go.
Gang violence. Yeah. There's a lot of.
I mean, you know, games could be very easily used properly to address that. I don't know whether or not this game does that very well. I've seen a lot.
It is definitely. It definitely. It does not take it in like a. I don't even like. I don't even know the proper word for this. It doesn't take it. It takes itself seriously to the point where it's trying to express something to you that isn't just like, boy, does it suck to live here. Oh,
yeah, it's more than that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very fine line. You know, there's obviously a lot of people will say things like keep politics out of video games or media or whatever. Well, the thing about that is that it's almost impossible to do that. You know, because almost everything is political to some extent. The question is not, well, keep politics out of video games. It's like, how do you integrate them in a way that helps the immersion and helps you tell the story and makes a good game that isn't just ramming things down your throat. You know? It's like BioShock wouldn't be BioShock without the political aspect of it, but it's not ramming anything down your throat there. Whereas there are some games which are overly preachy and they sacrifice everything else to be that. I hope that this game is not that, because certainly there are a lot of opportunities to make something genuinely impactful out of this. But you've got to make sure it's also interesting. And I've said it before, your games must be compelling. They don't have to be fun. They must be compelling in some way. And a lot of walk around watching things are just chores. And then you lose the emotional investment of people if you do that. It's like, what was the name of that one? Sunset? Was it Sun? where you played a cleaner. Was it Sunset?
I don't know.
Yes, it was Sunset. Yes.
Yeah.
That was attempting to deliver a political message. Unbelievably dull to play, to the point where I wasn't interested in their political message because I was so bored. That's the problem. If you're gonna deliver that story, you better do it well.
Right.
Cool. All right, let's move on.
Next up is called Queen's Quest. It's a hidden object game.
All right. Yep.
The game after that is Take on Mars. Which,
is this finally out?
Space exploration game, yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot that existed.
Yeah, it's been in early access for a long
helicopters,
time. Yeah, Take on Helicopters. You're right. Jesse, you are ruining everything.
I'm sorry.
Stop it. With your, I knew it was coming. I just hoped it
Take
wouldn't.
on Mars?
Yeah, I was hoping against hope that you wouldn't go there, but you did. But yeah, you're right. It's by the guys that made Take on Helicopters, which is generally considered a fairly good helicopter simulator. Take on Mars is supposed to be like a rover and space exploration, very sciencey kind of simulator. It's been in early access forever. Now it's officially out, which is neat. So I'm intrigued to see if that ends up being any good.
Cool. The next one is called Hell's Little Story. It looks like a Flash game where you play a little demon.
That's exactly what it looks like. Perfect description.
Oh, God. Yeah. This is what we say, by the way, when we say retro aesthetic in air quotes. You know, it's like, no, this doesn't look like a retro anything. It just looks like bad art. That's, yeah, not good.
Next up is called Bitku.
Okay.
It's not a game, but it looks like it's a sort of super simplistic game or story maker.
Yeah.
It's a free, simple storyteller, comic creator, art toy, and a new way to express yourself in pixels.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a creation tool, essentially, which is kind of neat, you know? I like being able to mess around with stuff like that. I mess around with Twine every once in a while to do that. Although you can legitimately make an actual game with Twine.
Right.
it's just quite tricky to do properly, but it can be done.
After that, we have For Honor beta, which we all know.
We all know about the beta for For Honor, yes, indeed.
Yeah. After that is Quarantine, Find the Cure, Save the World.
Yeah, I assume this is coming out. This just came out like about an hour or so ago. I think I saw an ad for this yesterday that looked pretty neat. It's sort of it's a management game where you're trying to fight off a disease. It's not like what the hell's the name of that game where
Plague Inc.
Plague Inc. That's I keep getting confused between Plague Inc. and Pandemic. Yeah, it's
so not related to the MS-DOS Quarantine, where you're a taxi driver in the post-apocalyptic future killing people.
I'm gonna assume no, but that
Totally
sounds
different
great,
Quarantine.
and I should totally play it. That sounds hilarious. Yeah, this looks pretty neat. Yeah, it's as I say, it's a management strategy game where you're trying to save the world from a pandemic, which is kind of cool.
After that, we have Greyhound Manager 2, which is a manager sim about greyhound dogs.
I'd actually probably play this. I'm gonna be. I like little management games, and I'd love to manage a stable little doggies and make them achieve their dreams.
Little pupperooskies.
Yeah. Why not?
The game after that is called Brutal with an @ sign.
Ah, yes.
A modern reimagining of the classic ASCII dungeon crawler.
This is pretty neat in the way they've done it, because I used to play a lot of ASCII roguelikes, as in the real ones, Angband, Zangband, Umoria, Sangband. There were a lot of Angband variants, I don't know if you noticed that. And most of them were delivered in ASCII. They used ASCII instead of graphics, and the @ sign was always that always represented you. You were the @ sign, and you were fighting lowercase t's and uppercase w's and representing all that kind of thing. But here, the cool thing is they've made the art style out of ASCII. So like your shield is the @ sign. It's actual like full 3D action dungeon crawler. I love the aesthetic of it. It looks neat.
More graphical than any other ASCII thing I've seen. Like there was Sanctuary RPG a little while back, and that was like pure ASCII stuff. Whereas this is like taking that idea and giving a more 3D aesthetic to it. It seems interesting.
Yeah, I just love the idea of taking ASCII and using it as a interpretive aesthetic. I think that's really cool. I think I've got code coming in for this. I'm definitely going to be looking this over the next few days. It looks like it might be right up my alley.
The game after that is called Lamb, Lamm. It's got kind of a limbo aesthetic, but it's a...
Definitely does. It's very limbo.
It's a platformer where you can't jump on your own.
Okay.
So like there are different orbs in in the sky, and each orb, depending on what the color they are, will allow you to jump a certain number of times. So you have to like plan out your jumps in order to like get through. It sounds like it could be interesting.
All right.
Next up is called Robinson: The Journey.
Yeah,
it looks beautiful. This game looks.
It does.
Gorgeous.
It does. It is VR by the looks of it. For Oculus, it's a seated and standing Oculus Rift game. It doesn't seem to have Vive support, although I assume you can do Revive on it. I don't know what you actually do in it. All I know is there's dinosaurs, and it's a $40 game. It currently has negative reviews because it doesn't work.
Yeah, all the reviews are saying that it doesn't
load, which is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, that's a pretty big problem.
Might want to fix that, but yeah, it's an exploration.
It looks amazing.
It does look. If it looks that good in VR, then I might, once they've fixed it and made it run, then I might pick it up just to be immersed in a big dinosaur world. That sounds like it could be cool.
There's a little cute baby T-Rex.
Yeah.
To love.
The next one is called DV Drum. It's a drum simulator. So.
Apparently it's the ultimate drum simulator, no less.
Indeed.
I don't know how one is. I mean, this is actually, I don't think this is even a game at this point. This is an actual synthesizer. I don't know if it's a good synthesizer, but there you go.
The game after that looks kind of interesting. It's called Cult of Cthulhu Olympic.
Man, I, for the briefest moment, thought this was going to be a Cthulhu game, but the Olympics. Like, one of those Mario
Cthulhu
games,
goes to the Olympics.
In the Olympics, it was Cthulhu monsters, but like doing vault. And
I would be entirely okay with that.
It seems like it's a choose your own adventure, and you play it inside of like a girl's journal.
Yes.
It looks really cool.
I like the aesthetic of it. Yeah, it definitely looks like a game book style thing, but they've really like used that game book aesthetic. There's been quite a few really good game book like games lately. I mean, I've mentioned 80 Days time and again, and I'm going to keep shoving it down people's throats until they buy it. That game's fucking amazing, and the way that it delivers text onto your screen is so compelling. But yeah, this looks pretty neat, and I like game books. I'm very much into game books.
The one after that is called Pyro VR.
Pyro VR, early access fireworks and explosive show. Which, again, if this looks good, I mean, unfortunately, it doesn't look all that good, but if it did, I would absolutely be up for this. Setting up my own VR fireworks with the touch controls, that sounds great. But this looks a little ropey, let me put it that way. So hopefully they are able to polish this up a little bit.
This next one I'm confused by. It's called Wizard King. It says it's a strategy collectible card game, but when I get to the screenshots
I don't see cards.
Me neither! When I get to the screenshots that show them fighting, I'm like, where are the cards, though?
Yeah. I mean, it may just be a very... Yeah, I don't...
Collectible icons. That's a new subgenre.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it is. There are no cards here. It's just collect stuff. I assume that it's a single-player game, isn't it? Yeah, it's one of those single-player adventure, get the cards along the way kind of thing, which are fun, actually. I remember I played a bunch of Destiny, which is quite a funny game if you can deal with the fact that it has literal memes as cards in it. And Card City Knights, which is by the guy that made It'll Do, is a very fun little single-player card game. Nothing will ever beat the Pokemon CCG game on Game Boy Color, though, I can tell you. Magnificent!
The game after that is Blue Effect VR. It is a VR, like waves of enemies.
Atmospheric shooter thing? Yeah. You're going super crackly right now, by the way. Do you want me to take over until you...
let's swap.
Yeah, I'll take over the announcement until hopefully we can fix that. Yeah, atmospheric wave shooter. I mean, there's a lot of wave shooters on VR. Let me put it that way. So it's...
This one in particular almost looks a little bit like raw data.
Yeah, it does. You're totally right. Very similar aesthetic, although I imagine Raw Data is probably far further on. Although this is actually out of early access now, and Raw Data is not, so maybe it is more complete. I don't know. Worth a try if you're in again for the VR shooting experience, of which there is a lot of right now.
Yep.
The next game goes by the name of Dimensional Rift. It is a free virtual reality arcade game where that's totes not a Stargate honest, guys. And... you have a kind of laser sword and shield. Oh, things just come out of the portal and you hit them.
Somewhere, Teal'c's like, indeed.
Yeah, just play Fruit Ninja VR. It's a better version of this, I think, by the looks of it. Although this is free, so hey. Come on, what do we got? What do we got? Not, as in K with the knot. Rediscover the world of Chinese wood knots. I'm not sure I'd ever discovered it in the first place, but okay. It's a 3D mechanical puzzle game. Looks quite nice, actually, if you're into that kind of thing. It's a niche market, but hey. The next game goes by the name of Rest House, which is all wrong, apparently.
I can't figure out what this game is.
No. 5 stories that are connected with mysterious characters. The main character is trying to discover the meaning of it.
But, like, I don't see gameplay. I can't figure out what this game is.
Yeah, I'm looking. It literally doesn't even list the gameplay in the features down here. I'm scrolling down, like, yeah, key features of the game: story, art style. It's like, yeah, but what does it do? Apparently, there's puzzles and hidden keys somewhere. So I guess it's one of those first-person exploration games. I'm going to assume, but yeah, it's not very detailed. Moving on to Civil War: Battle of Petersburg. There's a lot of Civil War games. This one costs a grand total of 59 cents. And I'm going to... Yep, it's a hex-based war game. That's all it is. For 59 cents. Which is unusual. Most of those war games are quite expensive because they're towards a very niche market.
Right.
Don't necessarily mean if that means it's bad. I don't want to judge a book by its price, but who knows. The next one is called It Lurks in the Woods.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything. It looks like a short exploration game that's
It's exactly what it is.
Like a spooky...
Just
Yeah,
based on,
all the reviews are like, it's not a horror game, it's the walking simulator scare game.
French-Canadian folklore. That's different.
Quebecois?
That's neat. Wasn't Sang Froid, Tales of Werewolves, also based on that?
Yeah.
That was a pretty neat
Sounds
game.
like it.
Yeah, that was a neat game. That was about defending your town from werewolves, and you had to set up traps and manage your town, and there was tactical combat. And I kept mispronouncing the name of it. I called it Sang-Froid. No, Sang-Froid, apparently. I apologize to my Quebecy brethren. Alright. Okay, we got rid of Yo Crackle, at least for a while.
Really?
Anyway.
It's gone?
It's gone for the time being. Well, I'll let you know if it
Excellent.
comes back.
Cool. The next game is called Fantasy Fairways. It's like a fantasy golf game.
Okay. I mean, that's potentially neat. I've seen quite a few of these whole, mini golf games. This one is interesting in that it's... I don't know if this is 2D or top-down. I can't tell, actually. I think it's 2D.
It looks 2D, like side view kind of thing.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a get-to-the-end kind of thing. Physics-based by the looks of it. Looks kind of neat.
This next game is called Powers VR. It's a VR game where you're a superhero and you get to play with different superpowers.
That sounds awesome. The question is, like, can you...
Whether or not it's good.
Yeah, is it actually a game or just a toy box?
I think it's a toy box.
Yeah, it's currently in early access. No, it seems that there are gameplay aspects to it, apparently. I saw guys shooting dudes with lasers and there was damage numbers coming off it. But yeah, you get to experience, like, flying through the air. Oh, and you get to do this to do it. That's pretty cool. Yes. I can see the appeal of that.
The next game is called Alone with You. It looks like it's a story game, bittersweet sci-fi adventure game that goes right for your heart.
Oh, great. A romantic adventure game by way of Star Trek, according to the quote here. Yeah, because, Star Trek never had any romance in it or anything. First interracial kiss on television! Maybe pay attention to that when you come up with your quotes. But yeah, I mean, it seems mostly like a text adventure, from what I can tell.
The next game is called Ananias, Ananias. Explore 5 ancient realms, fighting their monstrous inhabitants.
We were talking about actual roguelikes earlier of the classic style. This is that, although it uses a tile set as opposed to ASCII. But yeah, it looks like a very, very old school top-down dungeon crawler roguelike. Moving on.
This next one, moving on to February 10th. This next game is called Convicted Galaxy. I don't know what type of game this is. Looking at the screenshots, it's very busy and I'm confused.
I'm already intrigued. Apparently you're stranded in an unknown galaxy full of escaped prisoners who grow stronger with every passing moment. God, they're busy.
No.
Build a space station, upgrade your ship, and dogfight your way out of the galaxy, which all sounds kind of interesting. I just don't know how any of that works. Is it a management game? Do you pilot at any point? I'm trying to figure it out by looking at the video and not really getting very far.
It has adaptive 3D audio as a key feature. So
interesting. Not what I generally buy my games on the basis of, but hey.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I think it does seem to have some sort of arcade aspect to it. I think it's all on flat plane as well, which is not that appealing for a lot of space games. Some of them are okay like that, but this one, because it's very much a dogfighting game, not so great that it's on flat plane like that. But hey, we'll see. It's going into early access. We'll see what happens when it's actually done.
This next game makes me uncomfortable.
Okay. What you got?
It's called Jump to Die.
It makes me uncomfortable too.
It says the world is doomed. People don't have enough resources to live. So as a genius business holder, you realize it's a chance to make money. You rent a small building and begin your business, attracting people to jump off your roof.
You run a suicide company.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
I definitely see how that could be done satirically. A lot of the text was in Chinese, I think, which is particularly disturbing,
right. Like,
considering. Oh my. Yeah. All right. Well, sure.
Yeah. So there's that.
Yeah.
The
Probably
next
not
one
play
is
that one,
called
but
My Super Tower 1. It looks like it's
Wait.
free? I'm confused.
it's DLC for My Super Tower 2, but it's free.
Okay.
I don't understand what this is.
I don't either.
It's
a classic tower defense with
Tower defense.
minimalistic
Okay.
2D
All right.
graphics.
Yeah, because that's never been done before. Next.
The Barbarian and the Subterranean Caves.
Why would they be? Don't go in caves. It's an adventure visual novel about the heroic feats of intrepid warrior Ragnar. Apparently it's an 18+ game, so expect boobies and well-oiled men.
Sure.
Made by a Russian studio by the looks of it.
yo.
There's a dragon in there somewhere. Yeah.
There's a screenshot of the guy eating chicken legs and watermelon. It's a thing.
Great. Cool. This is going very well so far. Next.
The next game is called X-Bird, and it's a bunch of birds shooting lasers and stuff at each other.
It's fucking JonTron. People are going to assume again, like, you hate JonTron now? It's like, no, it's a donkey reference, god damn it. I mean, this looks kind of hilarious and appealing for 99 cents, I have to say.
This clip of a bald eagle running from another bird shooting lasers at it is the funniest thing I think I've ever seen on the
It's
internet.
great.
Holy
It's
shit, I just got to
hilarious.
that bit. Actually, for $1, this seems hilarious. Okay.
Get out of there, bald eagle, run!
Oh my god. Next.
Next up is called Wacky Spores: The Chase. It's an
Wacky
RPG
Spores.
runner.
Okay.
I don't
It
know what
combines
that
the strategy of... Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's one of those. There's a lot of these on mobile, where it's sort of a real-time side-scrolling battle RPG kind of thing. Yeah, they've done quite a few of those. There's giant bees in it for some reason. I don't know why that is.
Yeah. After that, we have Bloody
Oh,
Boobs. It got
God.
pushed.
Yo.
Yes,
And then-
yes. Please be released so we can never talk about it again.
Yes.
And then we
release.
have 8-Bit Armies Arena.
Ooh.
And this is intriguing, what's going on with this right now. There's 3 8-bit games that are all RTSs. They're not 8-bit at all, by the way. They're just kind of voxels, looking kind of lo-fi. They released by some of the ex-CNC guys. There's currently 6 factions involved in it, if you buy all 3 games. What Arena is a multiplayer-only version of the games. Play one of 6 different armies across certain maps. I don't know if this is going to be free or not. The game has a campaign in it and a bunch of other stuff, but I assume this is just a multiplayer-only, maybe cheaper variant of it to get people invested in it. I've played the games. They're quite fun. They're quite basic for what they are for real-time strategy, but you can do crazy shit like have aliens fight orcs and have a modern army against an army of elves and dwarves and shit, which is kind of neat. So, yeah, they're not bad. They're just, they're quite, straightforward, I would say.
The next game is called The Source of Evil. It's a VR game listed as violent and gory, but they're just like weird purple men that run at you. It looks like they're the source of evil, I guess.
The weird purple, yes, we must off the weird purple man immediately. It looks like it's another Stupa for the most part. VR shooter, standing. Yeah. A lot of those.
After that we have Captain Lycop, Invasion of the Headers. But it looks like it's supposed to be French. Yeah.
Yeah.
A space shooter mixing adventure, action, and tactics. You fly what I assume is a giant rabbit head for some reason. I'm not going to ask. I don't want to know. For the most part, though, it just seems like a twin stick.
The next game is called Mutant Fighting Cup 2. Evolve, mutate, and train your monsters to win a monster
kinda love
championship.
this. I kinda love
This
awesome.
sounds great. A brutal turn-based strategy. This seems like Neopets on crack. Look at this shit.
Yeah, this looks
It looks
hilarious.
great. Yeah.
I mean, this looks potentially entertaining. I might give this a try.
Yeah, get a little bit of an Impossible Creatures vibe, so that's cool.
Yeah, that's always cool. I actually played that recently. That game still holds up. It's a ton of fun.
Next one's called Way Out Hex 2.
Way Out. God, this is a terrible name.
It's a hex puzzle game, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Can you find it again? I don't even know what I was looking for in the first place. Next.
Next is called Evangeline.
Evangeline. It's a first.
About to get emotional. It's one of those.
It looks like it.
They have a name for these now, by the way. I don't know if you agree with this being a good name. I think it's okay. FPX, First Person Experience. Basically what they were kind of rebranding Walking Simulator as. I'm okay with that. I think that's a decent moniker, and it's less clunky than Walking Simulator. So sure.
Yeah, vague enough.
Yeah, exactly. I'm okay with it.
Yeah. The next one is called Zombie Balls.
Great. Balls with a Z as well, just to know we're super radical, am I right?
It's a physics puzzle game. Kill the undead, keep the villagers alive.
Zombie
balls. With zombie balls. It throw rocks at zombies in a 2D level, sure. All right.
Next up is called Foot Rock. It's a sports game.
Foot Rock VR. Oh yeah, this was the sort of Mario Party like weird sports game with cardboard cutout cows and all sorts of crazy shit going on. Yeah, this was like, I guess this was pushed because this was a few weeks ago. But it actually looked pretty fun for what it was.
After that, we have Block King.
Block King.
Doesn't look great. It's also listed as massively multiplayer.
I don't think it is that. I don't.
I'm so confused.
I am looking at this game and I'm thinking that I don't want to be looking at it anymore. Next is called the Safeguard Garrison. A Safeguard
tower defense game.
Of course it is. Yes. You Crackle's back, by the way.
Fuck. Okay. You want to take over?
Yeah, I'll take over. We are getting rid of that audio interface before next show. Jesus Christ. But yeah, that is it's a tower defense game. One of many. Just play Defense Grid for the love of God. All right, moving on to February the 11th. Western 1849 Reloaded become the
cool.
Yeah, it actually does. I like
a little bit of Carl Juarez Gunslinger.
Yeah,
maybe.
A little bit of Mad Dog McCree maybe in here as well. Something like that. There was also like this really cool Wild Guns, was it? That Neo Geo game? Seems like there's a little bit of that in there. Yeah, it's a third-person shooting gallery, but it looks like it's pretty fun. I like the aesthetic too. Yeah,
cel-shaded look.
Yeah, looks pretty cool. And then moving on to Cavern of Time.
Nostormu?
No, nothing of the sort. It's an RPG adventure game. If it has a frame rate, I'm not sure how to describe it, but yeah, it looks like it runs quite slow. I think we actually covered this last week, so I guess it got pushed. But yeah, very old school looking RPG. Almost looks like RPG Maker game, but it looks a little too advanced for that. Moving on to Dash Fleet. A simple and fun dashing action game. It's a fucking clone of Flappy Bird, isn't it?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. It's kind of Flappy Bird.
Kind of Flappy Bird-ish.
Never-ending fun means, that.
It's never end. There's Flappy Bird arcade machines now. We are truly lost. Next, Seclusion is the name of it. It is an atmospheric adventure of risk versus reward. Try to find supplies and a solution to saving humanity by the day, but don't be surprised if you don't survive the night.
Damn.
Yeah, this looks potentially neat, sort of management survival-esque kind of thing, and you're running around a lab coat doing it. Next one, Dragon Kingdom War. I mean, really,
this looks kind of cute, maybe.
Anything called this sounds great. The question is whether it will be. It is a puzzle RPG. Combines
little dragons, and they turn into big boy dragons.
Turn-based strategy, role-playing, card battle, and match 3 all in the same game, which sounds kind of like it would be up my alley. I like those things. I like all of those things. I'm not so sure about the aesthetic. Bit anime for my liking, but we'll see. I don't know if it's going to be a free-to-play or anything like that. Moving on. Oh, my fucking God.
I think we're all cool with you skipping that one.
If you want to play that, play Fallout 4. Next, Ultimagus. A magical 2D shooter defender with unique spell selection. Blast through 50 levels, face countless hordes of monsters and evil bosses. A strategical fantasy shooter. Whatever that means. It's sort of a side-scrolling thing of sorts with items and... yeah. Also, your characters are far too small.
Skipping the next one.
Yes, we agree the next one's fine to skip.
That game, every week, I'm
Say
fairly.
it. Say its name.
Don't give
know
them
it.
publicity.
It's
Don't
been
give
there for
them-
months. I'm not saying it. I won't say it. I won't tell it. I know that they're doing this on purpose. They're pushing it back every week, so we have to mention it on every show. I'm not gonna
Don't
fall
do
for
it.
your scheme anymore. I will not be your
Don't do
puppet.
it.
Puppet, you're the puppet.
Damn.
Winds of Trade is the next one, a strategy game about running an ocean trading company in the 18th and 19th century. Again, kind of up my alley. Got to buy low, sell high, defend against pirates, all that kind of thing. There are not enough good Age of Sail games, I believe. Hopefully this will be one of them. Otherwise, I'm going back to playing yet another round of Sid Meier's Pirates. Red Haze. You know, my dear, my life isn't safe. What on earth is all of this?
What an interesting
what
looking
the
game.
I-
What is this?
I don't know what this is.
What? I want to play this.
Okay, sure. You go ahead with that. Apparently, it has 27 endings. I don't. It's
Add to
mostly
wish list.
Mostly-
Nudity, sexual content, gore. Okay.
all right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what
You
is
know.
happening?
I don't know what's going on with that. You guys can deal with that one. Next, Darwin's Demons. I don't think.
Shooter. Space shooter.
Boy, do I wish it was what it wasn't.
And,
Like, there's
it's just
with a name like that, I was hoping it to be something fucking awesome.
something
and creepy.
maybe a little bit cerebral. No, it's actually Space
Yeah.
Invaders. But it does have some like you've got like abilities and customization and stuff. But again, good luck convincing anyone to play Space Invaders. And last but by no means least, we have
Lore League
LOR,
of Runners.
League of Runners, yes, which I'm going to assume is VR.
It
Actually,
looks like it.
It
Right,
looks
for the
like it, but
title
it might
Best
not be.
Runner in a beautiful fantasy. I mean, beautiful's pushing it, maybe.
Here's my problem. You're fighting for the title of best runner, but it's a single player game. So literally, like,
You ain't
you're the
speedrunners.
best kid. You're the best kid. You,
No
you
else to
beat
compare it to.
everyone else.
There's a lot of in development there.
There is.
Multiplayer
Yeah,
in
you're right.
development, VR in development,
Everything-
leaderboards development.
Yeah, that's a bit of a concern. Well, we'll see how that one goes. And
Can we get a shout out to a game that I did not know was even out? Bleed 2 came out.
yes,
today,
it did. It did.
Didn't even have a clue about that.
No, that snuck up. There were a couple of things that were actually missing from that list. Bleed 2 being one of them. And one we mentioned last week, Invisigun Heroes is out today as well, which I'm looking forward to taking a look at. So keep an eye on those. Those are supposed to be quite good. And that Horus Heresy game, I think, came out today. But again, I wouldn't recommend it at this point. One other reminder, which is not a game release, but an update. The Radiant update to Darkest Dungeon came out today. So the brand new Radiant mode that rebalances the whole game and supposedly makes it a bit shorter and such, and adds a ton of new content. It's in. That's not the DLC. That's not the Crimson Court or whatever it is they're working on right now. But if you wanted a reason to go
No
back...
vamps yet, y'all.
No, you wanted a reason to go back to Darkest Dungeon, maybe you thought it was a little bit too unfair, a little bit too punishing. They have a new Radiant mode that you can play, which is less so. I might give that a shot. I have no shame in admitting that game is very difficult, and
I've never beaten it with as much as
No.
I've played it.
I've still never even touched
I
it.
would
because
love
of
to
that,
see an
so.
ending to that.
There you
game.
go. There's your
I'm
update.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, this might be the update for you then. Radiant mode has a ton of new rebalancing and features. And I'll say this about, some people might say, you should play it in its original form and all that kind of thing. Same with XCOM. It's like, you should play it on Legendary and Iron Man, and that's the only way you should ever play it. No, it's a single-player game. Let people enjoy it in the way that they want to enjoy it. And if it gets more people to experience Darkest Dungeon, which is a fucking great game, then so be it. By all means, put it in an easier mode. Give it a try. I'll probably start a new save file with that, and I may very well enjoy it more, or I may enjoy it less. I might do if I spend enough time, I might do a video on that and say, hey, did this easier mode affect the enjoyment of the game negatively or positively? I think that's an interesting conversation to have. So give it a try. Give it a try. I think that is about it. As far as I know, in terms of releases and all that good stuff. Unless you want to play apparently they brought out Shadows of the Empire again on Steam. God knows if it works very well. Steam doesn't do a great job of releasing games that are compatible with everything. Let me put it that way. So maybe stick to GOG for most of that stuff. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching the podcast. But before we go, we would love you to watch our material because that's how we pay our rent. So our special guest today, of course, was Clint from LazyGameReviews. Thank you very much for spending your time coming on the show today. Hopefully your house isn't blown over in the current windy storms that we're having in this area.
Survived so far.
Yes, indeed. I would love to know what's coming up over the next couple of weeks on your channel. So why don't you let us know where you can find it and what you've got coming up.
Okay, well, youtube.com/LazyGameReviews. I've got a special tomorrow on the entire history of America Online. So from
What?
89
bless you.
until today. So it's 21 minutes of just ridiculously in-depth stuff showing what happened to them.
Does it end with the fact that my mom still has an AOL email?
There is actually a mention of a number of people that still have the address and the number of people that still pay for dial-up, which is somewhere in the range of 2 million customers.
What?
Still
Yeah.
paying for dial-up.
That's actually true.
Insane.
So that's a thing.
If you can believe it.
Yeah, AOL is a fascinating story. So that's that. We'll see after that. I've got a video showing how to play Doom on a TI-83 calculator.
Oh no, don't post that. My kid will put it on and he'll not pay attention to maths class, I'll tell you. He's already put games on that damn thing. I know you've done it.
We all do it. But, if you can put Doom on something and play it, you should, even if it's a calculator.
True. I'll give an exception to that one. Just that one in particular. Important part of our history, that one.
And, after that, I don't know. New videos every Monday and Friday. I haven't made anything beyond that, so.
Yeah, most of us don't plan that far ahead.
That's
but, yeah.
pretty much what it is.
Yep, his channel name has been under his face for the last 3 hours. If you haven't noticed it by now, you definitely weren't paying attention. But go and check it out for all your retro goodness, specifically PC retro goodness, which is not often addressed. Jesse, what you got coming up? What's going on?
There's more Resident Evil fun. Hopefully I can convince you to do more Pit People fun.
We could probably do that, yeah, but a bit more Pit People would not go amiss. There's actually a new episode of that up as of yesterday on my channel, so actually it was, I don't know if it went up yesterday or the day before, but it's up. Go watch it.
And man, just all sorts of fun and silly stuff. Tomorrow you can probably expect a Fan Friday of Nefarious as well. So. Get ready.
Means I should do my Nefarious video tonight to release it slightly before yours. Yes.
Ooh, beat me to it.
So rude.
We will benefit from cross-pollination. Trust me. And if we do not, you can have one of my delicious iced creams. So,
Okay.
I'm going full Space Bear again. I slip into Space Bear once in a while. It just happens. But now it's time for you to die.
Space Bear.
Jesse gave me the rest of his blueberries.
That is you. I don't care what anyone says.
I know.
It's basically
It's your true
you're
form.
a giant space bear.
Yeah, that's apparently the only voice I can do is Space Bear from Pit People. There you go. It's a fairly limited and not very useful talent, but I will make the best use of it if possible. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Now it's time for you to die. Dodger, what you got coming up this week?
Well, we started doing anime news, and I'm very excited about that. It's been doing very well.
God, it's
so
the end of the
if you would like
universe.
to go to my channel and see, we now have weekly gaming news and anime news. My first impressions of this season of anime is up, and I'm going to be streaming For Honor right after this stream. So if you would like to hang out on my Twitch channel, it's twitch.tv/dexbonus. I would love to see you there. And just have a good day.
Yes, and I'm sure she will replace her audio interface literally any time now, so we'll see.
I literally have a tab up that says babyface audio on it.
It's worth the investment. Mine lasted for 6 fucking years and didn't break, and I dropped it on many a airport or train platform or God knows what. It's a good piece of kit. Bit pricey, but better than buying a new Scarlet every year. Trust me, you'll save money in the long run. Don't buy a Scarlet, folks. They just break too often. A quick reminder, anime related incidentally, for those who've been watching Tiger Mask W, that's restarted again. There's a few more episodes of it out, so you get to see their interpretation of the current WWE Women's Champion and them taking the piss out of WWE's treatment of women wrestlers by deliberately giving them their measurements first and having the Japanese commentator say, "What the fuck are you doing?" It's like, I thought the audience would like to know their measurements.
Jesus Christ.
Let me just put it this way. They're getting less and less subtle about their jabs at WWE, and it's hilarious, and I love it. So yeah, go watch the episodes of that. It's great. Coming on my channel, oh god, things I'm considering all sorts of things. I'm probably going to do that Nefarious video. I'm going to do a Banner Saga video, because I actually beat a video game, which is incredibly rare these days. Yeah, I did it. So I'll do the Banner Saga video. A lot of people have been asking me to do that anyway, just like, oh, Banner Saga deserves exposure. I was like, yeah, you're probably right. So I might do that. I just installed Battle Cruise Space Pirates, which is something I think we pointed out last week that looked a bit like Showdown Effect. Might play a little bit of that. I also reinstalled Rack, because I saw it on some random guy's video that I was watching. I can't remember the name of the person, but it's like, oh, Rack, I remember that. Oh my, that looks like it's come in a lot since I last played it. Very sort of retro style shooter with a cool, I think it's a flat shaded sort of aesthetic. So yeah, I might do that. And I may do a little double head of double bill video on the 2 really bad Warhammer 40,000 games. That may happen. There'll also be a video of my voice pack for StarCraft 2, because people have been asking for that. I'm going to do a little bit of playthrough of that and demonstrate some of the voices for you. Jesse still has not released his video on my voice pack, so...
It is coming this weekend.
It is coming.
Y'all, get ready.
Yeah.
It's Jesse and TV play StarCraft. Or
more accurately, yeah, Jesse gets yelled at by robot TotalBiscuit while playing StarCraft.
Yep.
Yeah, that'll be a thing. And outside of that, if you missed the wonders of Shoutcraft Kings that happened either last week or the week before, can't really remember which, I think it was the week before, all of the VODs are now available on my second channel, which is my StarCraft channel. That is youtube.com/TotalBiscuit. Go and check that out for some great StarCraft competitive action. And that is about it, I think. I'm hopefully not missing anything. We're not missing anything, right? We weren't supposed to promote anything. No, not a sponsor week. Great. Good. However, there is one little thing I would like you to know, that next week's show will be on a slightly different day. We're moving things around. I've got surgery this month and people are going to events and all sorts of things like that. So actually, it won't be next week. It'll be the week after. The week of the 19th to the 25th. We are going to be moving the show to the 20th, which is a Monday. Not the Tuesday, which is the 21st. Because I'm in hospital on the 21st. So the 20th we'll be doing the show. That's in 2 weeks. So you don't need to worry about next week. Next week should, in theory anyway, but it's usual time, it's usual place, on its usual channel. Assuming we don't fuck that up again. Well, we'll see. Clint, thank you very much for spending so much time with us today. Very much appreciated. Go check out his channel. His YouTube name is right under his face, as it has been for the last 3.5 or so hours. We're about done. Thank you very much for watching the Co-optional Podcast. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Fix the crackle. Fix your crackle.